Chapter 926. Gong Coco was still familiar with the term bridal chamber. She understood instantly. Her face was burning as she looked at him with bright eyes. That pure and transparent gaze nourished Jiang Shanka's evil thoughts. His Adam's apple bobbed as he touched her cheek and muttered to himself, "I really want to hide you away and let you become my private pet." It was obviously an offensive remark, but it made Gong Coco even more aroused. What should she do? She felt that she couldn't continue eating this meal properly. Jiang Shanka really didn't intend to let her eat properly. He directly carried her up and walked to the sofa at the side. There were only the two of them on the top floor of the restaurant, so he could be so unrestrained. Outside, the transparent floor-to-ceiling windows were tall buildings. In other words, if someone were to use binoculars, they would be able to see the couple lingering on the sofa. Therefore, Gong Coco was especially embarrassed. She put her little hand on Jiang Shanka's body and said angrily, "What are you going to do?" Jiang Shanka saw that her neck had turned pink, and he guessed that she was blushing all over. He laughed deeply. "Of course, I'm going to discuss with you the day after tomorrow. What else do you think I'm going to do?" he said with a serious look, but the hand holding her waist was very strong and didn't allow her to escape from his embrace. Gong Coco pouted and said, "Then say it. You're not allowed to get closer." Jiang Shanka nodded and hugged her well. "Right now, public opinion is against you. But after a few days, it will be a good advantage for you. Coco, although you have a lot of things in your little head, the birth of anything needs publicity. Right now, there is an excellent opportunity in front of you. It's up to you to fight for it." Gong Coco saw that he was really talking about serious matters. She quickly listened and humbly asked for advice. "Go ahead." Jiang Shanka nodded and continued. "Right now, there's a famous director in the country who wants to send a large-scale period drama. He's looking for the female lead. He's famous for finding new people. After you prove your innocence the day after tomorrow, go for the audition. If you can get his recognition and act in his drama, then your fame will increase greatly. At that time, no matter what you do, you'll be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort." His eyes flashed. "That is to say, this is a very good opportunity for you. With the help of public opinion, you might be able to rise to the top." Gong Coco's eyes flashed with deep thought. "You mean that if I want to start my career, I can't lose my identity as an actress because it can help me?" Jiang Coco dotingly pointed. "SSSS, is so's, SSSSS, calm, then I'll continue to be an actress." Jiang Shanka revealed a sly expression. "But as an actress, especially an actress, the most important thing is to not have any scandals. So, you have to pay more attention to your relationships with your colleagues." Gong Coco guessed his thoughts and quickly raised her head to give him a loving kiss. "Don't worry, I like you, just you. I'll never find a boy toy." Jiang Shanka's expression changed. "You still want a boy toy? Little girl, you've got some guts." As he spoke, he fiercely scratched Gong Coco's itchy flesh. The two of them played with each other, but their expressions were inexplicably intimate. Very soon, as the matter became more and more serious, Gong Coco's original entertainment company drew a clear line with her. Jiang Shanka took the opportunity to let his Migres Imperial Entertainment sign Gong Coco and held a press conference. Originally, not many people would come for a small-time actress like Gong Coco. But when it involved Meng Xiaoqing and so many explicit erotic videos, there were still many people who came looking for her. It could be said that this was the first time Gong Coco faced her career and decided to do it well. "Gong Coco, as a rich young lady, why did you degrade yourself to sell your body? Is it because your family doesn't get along?" As soon as Gong Coco got out of the car, she was blocked from all directions. Jiang Shanka watched from a distance and was really worried for Gong Coco. After all, Gong Coco hadn't been in contact with this world for a long time. It would be very difficult for her to face these people for the first time, who knew that Gong Coco got out of the car calmly, and 20 bodyguards opened the way. No one could touch a hair on her head. "Gong Coco, you've been chosen by Migres Imperial Entertainment. Are you using your body to climb up again?" "Gong Coco, may I ask what's your relationship with Meng Xiaoqing?" "Gong Coco, the internet is full of scolding. Why did you hold a press conference? The surroundings were too noisy. Gong Coco, who was on the red carpet, suddenly stopped and turned around with an unhappy expression. I held a press conference to prove my innocence, not to give you a chance to slander me. If anyone dares to slander me before I prove my innocence, I have no choice but to ask him to leave. When she said this, her head was slightly raised. That upright posture, noble and proud attitude made her more and more dazzling, like an inviolable princess. She was originally white, and the black and red dress made her look like a fire in the morning sun. When her gaze swept over someone, that person actually didn't dare to look at her. With just one sentence, the scene quieted down a lot. It was simply a miracle. Some people remembered that when Gong Coco glanced at them just now, they actually had the feeling that they were facing an unattainable princess, as if they would be beaten to death if they were disrespectful to her. They really saw a ghost. Gong Coco continued to walk into the venue. Because her attitude was too calm, everyone looked at her and didn't ask any questions for a while. The whole process was unbelievably simple. Zhang Shanka let out a long sigh of relief and smiled. His little cutie was even more powerful than he had imagined. Seeing that she had passed so smoothly, some of them came back to their senses, and some of them were unconvinced. When it was time to ask questions, they would like to see how Gong Coco would avoid it. Thinking like this, everyone quickly entered the venue. It seemed that there might be big news today. A middle-aged woman beside Gong Coco, who was the agent appointed by Zhang Shanka, stood up and said after the opening, "Everyone, please keep quiet. You can ask questions, but please pay attention to your words. Unfounded slander will be recorded by our lawyers. If you don't want to be sent a leaflet by the court, please think clearly before asking." Everyone looked at each other. Gong Coco was just an 18th-tier celebrity, and she had such a scandal. Was it really good to be so arrogant? However, looking at the 8 people who looked like lawyers on the side, everyone swallowed their saliva. They thought to themselves that it was indeed Migres Imperial Entertainment. They were so generous to a newcomer. At this time, the first person had already asked, "Gong Coco, how do you explain the video that went viral on the internet?" Chapter 9:27. Gong Coco raised her eyebrows slightly. "It's very simple. That wasn't me." Gong Coco's denial was within everyone's expectations. The reporter smiled and continued to ask questions. "Then how do you explain your parents admitting that it was you? Don't tell me your family mistook you for someone else?" Gong Coco's bright cat eyes stared at him unblinkingly. "Why not?" Her smile made the middle-aged man suddenly stumble. Then he heard Gong Coco continue speaking. "I wonder what evidence my once adorable family has provided to prove that it was me." The reporter snapped out of his daze and asked directly, "They said that you have a large area of burn on your back and that those scars can't be removed. That's why you've never worn a backless gown." After he finished speaking, everyone looked at Gong Coco with probing expressions. Gong Coco was wearing a beautiful dress with a gauze shawl on the outside. Gong Coco smiled calmly and asked slowly, "Does the girl in the video have scars on her back too?" "That's right." The reporter nodded affirmatively. "It's very clear. It's definitely a burn scar." Gong Coco nodded and reached out to take off the shawl. All along, she wasn't used to wearing clothes that were too revealing, but that didn't mean that she couldn't bring herself to wear them. The thick black gauze was piled at her feet like the billowing waves of her dress. Inside, she was wearing a long dress with a neckline. The thick color made her collarbone look even more exquisite. Both men and women present felt a little stunned. They had seen many celebrities, but this was the first time they had seen someone who could attract people's attention with just a raise of her hand. What Gong Coco didn't know was that the internet was also in an uproar. Someone said, "I originally came to see how this flirtatious slut Gong Coco would cry and how she would clear her name. I didn't expect that after seeing her. I didn't hate her at all. The way she walks seems different from ordinary people. Why is it that she looks so dignified and beautiful when she walks?" Same here. Is this woman with the aura of a big shot really the scheming girl in the video who relied on her body to climb up the social ladder? I don't believe it. You can't judge a book by its cover. She looks elegant, but who would have thought that she would be so bold and unrestrained for the sake of fame? But her collarbone is really beautiful. I want to lick my screen. That's enough. Don't you know how many people have licked her collarbone? Don't you find it disgusting? Gone Coco didn't know what the netizens were saying at this time. She took off her shawl and elegantly turned around. Her black and red silk dress fluttered in the wind, looking very elegant and calm. Everyone was a little confused when they saw her turn around. However, they saw Gone Coco stretch out her hand and push aside her satin hair. Then, she turned her head and glanced back. Is this the scar you're talking about? Impossible. Gao Sun, who was watching TV, screamed and broke the cup in her hand. She had confirmed that Gone Coco had scars on her back multiple times. That was why she had specially found such a woman. But why didn't she have any scars on her back? Not only was there no scar, but the skin on her back was as smooth as jade. There were no blemishes. Coupled with that head of beautiful hair, long and slender fingers, and that exquisite side profile, at that moment, many people held their breaths, and the originally noisy scene became completely silent. It wasn't until she put down her hair that the netizens exploded. Mom asked me why I was licking my screen. I really just licked it subconsciously. Does anyone feel that when she flipped her hair and looked back, not only was she not frivolous, but she was also inexplicably noble? Damn, such cool movements. Such cool fingertips. I really want to become a strand of her hair. Didn't anyone notice that there are no scars on her back? There are no scars at all. Even a scar removal surgery can't be done, right? When the crowd reacted, they were also shocked. What was going on? The Gong family swore that it was Gone Coco, and even specifically mentioned the scars on her back. In the end, there were no scars on Gone Coco's back, let alone scars. Even her pores couldn't be seen. Wasn't this reversal too strange? Gone Coco turned around. Seeing that the reporter was silent, she smiled elegantly. Next question. The person who was asked was already stunned. Gone Coco was the kind of person who was stunning at first sight, but the more you looked at her, the more stunning she became. She was like a high and mighty princess, and whoever she looked at, it was like she was bestowing a gift. After the initial panic of coming to this world faded away, a few months' time was enough for Gone Coco to regain her former glory. It was just that in the past, this glory was only seen by Jiang Shanka alone. However, at this moment, Jiang Shanka was extremely jealous. This gown was personally chosen by him. He knew how beautiful Gone Coco would look in it. He thought that as long as her back was exposed for a moment, he would tolerate it. However, when Gone Coco flipped her hair, it seemed to tug at his heart. He could hear the sound of everyone swallowing their saliva, even though he was standing so far away. He was a little regretful. He shouldn't have let this little girl come out to attract bees and butterflies. After being stunned for a long time, the reporter stammered, "What's your relationship with Meng Xiaoqing? Why are you sleeping on his lap? And you're very close." Gone Coco pursed her lips and smiled. Her delicate little face revealed her peerless beauty. She could handle a scene 100 times bigger than this, so such a small scene was naturally nothing to her. Meng Xiaoqing is a very good friend of mine. At that time, he was on set and had to shoot soon, so we could only use the meal time to find a place to rest. He's a very gentlemanly person. When he saw that I was sleeping uncomfortably, he let me sleep on his lap. I didn't expect that someone with ulterior motives would take a photo of it. Gone Coco spoke very generously. This wasn't a big deal, and it wasn't a kissing photo. She said it so frankly, and many people believed her. However, at this moment, the next female reporter suddenly asked a question. "I heard that you've always liked Meng Xiaoqing. Back then, it was because of Meng Xiaoqing that you tried your best to enter the set of Ming Zhao's legend. You also did a lot for Meng Xiaoqing. You're not just ordinary friends, right?" Her tone was a little sharp, and it was obvious that she had come prepared. If Gone Coco denied it, then she could say that Gone Coco really tried her best to get into the set. Anyway, no matter how Gone Coco answered, she would have a loophole to exploit. Gone Kiki smiled faintly, but her words were extremely unyielding. "I entered Ming Zhao's legend based on my ability. The director said that I was the only one who could act like a princess. You will naturally understand this point when the show airs." The director was right to choose me back then. She said it in a domineering and awe-inspiring manner, but the female reporter showed an unconvinced expression and said loudly, "Let's not talk about your ability for now. The netizens will give their evaluation. However, I heard that after you entered the set, you often sent Meng Xiaoqing lunch and even pestered him to teach you how to act. Many people know that you have feelings for Meng Xiaoqing. What do you say about this?" Gong Coco raised her head slightly and glanced at her coldly. "Who said that I have feelings for him? Who told you that I did these things?" That person paused. Gong Coco sneered and looked at the crowd arrogantly. "Without any real evidence, why should I answer your question? I'm not a criminal, and I don't have time to make groundless accusations with you. My main purpose here today is to clarify that I have nothing to do with the video. Someone wants to make me suffer an unjust injustice. I'm not that easy to bully." When her aura was fully released, the impact was extremely strong, especially when she added a bit of inner force when she said those words. Not only did the people present feel a sense of shock, even the netizens felt the same. They were all stunned by her sudden, domineering aura. They were completely speechless. Chapter 9:28. How should she put it? Gong Coco was really handsome. A large group of people online were mesmerized by her beauty, but the reporters would not let her off so easily. If what you said is true, then why did you only release the statement now? Or are you deliberately creating hype for yourself? The female reporter directly labeled the matter that had caused a stir during this period as a publicity stunt. Gong Coco glanced at her and sneered. "Words are no proof. In order to deal with unreasonable people like you, I used a few days to find evidence. Why do you have a problem with that?" As soon as she finished speaking, a girl who looked very similar to Gong Coco walked out. Jiang Shanka smiled proudly. At this moment, he was standing high up and looking down through the floor-to-ceiling window. The red wine glass in his hand swayed gently, and there was an indescribable sense of satisfaction. At this moment, Gao Sun's expression must be very interesting. Gao Sun was stunned. She quickly called to ask, but her subordinates told her that the girl had been under their control and there was no problem. But if there was no problem, then who was the woman on TV? Gong Coco glanced at the girl and felt that Jiang Shanka was really amazing. Gao Sun found a girl with a scar on her back to look like her, and Jiang Shanka found a girl who looked very similar to her and put a scar on her back. Actually, they didn't look that similar, but after Gong Coco's superhuman disguise, this girl looked like her twin sister. So when she walked out, all the reporters went crazy. How could there be two Gong Coco? Gong Coco gave a signal with her eyes, and the disguised Gong Coco started to clear Gong Coco's name. She confirmed that she was the one who took the video online, and that she did it because someone had accused her, but she refused to say who that person was. At this moment, the reporters present looked at each other. With the sudden reversal of the situation, even if they wanted to make things difficult for her, they had no way to do so. Then, the fake Gong Coco even showed the scar on her back, confirming the truth. She completely broke free from the erotic video that Gong Coco was in. As for who had schemed against her, Gong Coco did not say. She only said that she was innocent and hoped that the reporters would clear her name. At the same time, the director of Legend of Ming Xiao also released a statement saying that Gong Coco was a very intelligent actress. When the TV series started airing, everyone would naturally understand. Meng Xiaoqing also posted on Weibo that he and Gong Coco were just good friends. Gong Coco breathed a sigh of relief and went home with Jiang Shanka. As soon as the car arrived at the house, Gao Sun suddenly rushed over. Her left cheek was a little red and swollen. It was obvious that she had been slapped. However, the only person who could do this to her was her father. Jiang Shanka, you're actually so ruthless. How am I inferior to this bitch? How could you do this to me because of her? Once Jiang Shanka got out of the car, Gao Sun wanted to pounce on him, but was stopped by the bodyguards. Jiang Shanka gave the evidence that Gao Sun had framed Gong Coco to Mr. Gao and told him that Gao Sun could either marry someone of a lower status or he could send her to jail. Mr. Gao had no choice but to force Gao Sun to marry someone in a very short time. Moreover, The person was not Li Donghe, but a new rich man who was not as rich as the Gao family. Although he was a good match, Gao Sun was unwilling to accept it. The new rich man was not as rich as the Gao family, and he was almost 50 years old. She was the daughter of the Gao family. How could she marry such a man? Therefore, she came to Jiang Shanke. As long as Jiang Shanke agreed, she would not have to marry him. Otherwise, she would rather marry Li Donghe. However, Jiang Shanke would not give her the chance to rise. He looked at her and sneered. "Miss Gao, if you want to touch my wife, that means you're going against me. On account of the friendship between our families, I won't send you to jail this time. However, if you continue to be stubborn, the entire Gao family will be implicated by you." Jiang Shanke protected Gong Koko and said to the bodyguards, "Throw her out." "Yes." The bodyguards moved immediately. Gao Sun was screaming the whole time. Her words were very unpleasant. It was hard to imagine that she was the famous daughter of a rich family in Hadian City. Seeing Gong Koko staring at him, Jiang Shanke smiled. "Don't be afraid. I'm here. She can't do anything." Gong Koko shook her head and said faintly, "I'm not afraid. It's just that she's going to marry someone she doesn't like. It's quite pitiful." Jiang Shanke smiled. The man Gao Sun was going to marry was carefully selected by him. Not only was he ugly, but he also had a history of domestic violence. Gao Sun would have a very comfortable life after marrying him. However, she asked for it. She could not blame anyone else. "All right, don't think too much. Are you hungry? Let's go eat." Gong Koko nodded. However, when they were eating, she forgot her etiquette for the first time and browsed Weibo. "What's wrong?" Jiang Shanke looked at her strangely. Gong Keek's eyes sparkled as she looked at him. "Look, I have fans now." Jiang Shanke took a look and realized that Gong Keek's new manager was very smart. She had posted a photo of Gong Kiki with her back turned to Jiang Shanke, which attracted a lot of people to lick the screen. "Oh my god, it's this scene that made me suddenly become a fan of Suda. It's like a palace lady turning her head before taking a bath. She's so noble. Am I the only one who thinks that her skin is super good and her hair is super shiny? The more I look at her, the more stunning she is." Gong Kiki happily flipped through the pages for Jiang Shanke to see. She seemed to be saying, "Look, there are people who like me wherever I go." Jiang Shanke pursed his lips and smiled. He leaned over and kissed Gong Koko's face. "Fortunately, your tailbone is injured. It's just your back that's exposed. An artist's health is the most important thing. You have to be careful before you recover. Okay?" Gong Koko nodded. "Don't worry. I won't let anyone see the scar." Jiang Shanke was relieved. Seeing that she didn't eat anything, he fed her. Gong Koko shamelessly enjoyed the service of the great CEO Jiang. She felt that her age seemed to have regressed. A few days ago, she saw a sentence on the computer. The best ending for a woman was to meet a man who doted on her like a daughter. Gong Koko secretly glanced at Jiang Shanke and found that he was very gentle and serious as he fed her. She thought, maybe he's that kind of person? At night, Jiang Shanke was working at his desk while Gong Koko was lying on the side drawing. Her drawing skills were not bad. As a princess, she had seen many exquisite jewelry and clothes. She had thought about it before. With her current identity, starting a business with jewelry was a good choice. If she combined these beautiful things with modern fashion, it would definitely be irresistible. She drew for a long time. When Jiang Shanke came back to his senses, Gong Koko had already fallen asleep. Looking at her sleeping face, Jiang Shanke kissed her intimately and carried her to bed. Chapter 9:29. The director of Legend of Ming Xiao was also very smart. Taking advantage of the fact that Gong Koko's popularity had yet to die down, he brought forward the release date of the new drama. Those who had been critical of Gong Koko gradually quieted down after watching the new drama. Instead, there were more and more praises for her. Jiang Shanke had wanted to accompany Gong Koko to watch Legend of Ming Xiao last night, but Gong Koko had rejected him. Jiang Shanke was a little surprised. "This is your first work. You're not watching it?" Gong Koko was a little shy and a little proud. I didn't know anything at that time. Yeah, I wasn't in a good state at all. I felt that my acting was terrible. Jiang Shanka couldn't help but laugh. Then he pointed to the online reviews on his phone and said, "They all said that your acting was not bad. You look like a real princess." Gong Coco was even more unhappy when she heard this. "I'm a real princess to begin with. I really didn't act well." Jiang Shanka quickly agreed. Yes, yes, yes. Our little princess will get better and better. It's time to get up. Don't forget about director Jiang Chuanming's audition later." Gong Coco hugged the blanket and said cutely, "Then I'll get up after you kiss me." God knew that she only lazed around in bed with her mother when she was young. Jiang Shanka looked at her deeply. He knelt on the bed and looked down at her. "Little thing, if you don't leave now, I'm going to take a shower later," Gong Coco said thoughtfully. "So you're saying that you're more impulsive in the morning?" "Yeah, I've learned it." Jiang Shanka didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He pounced on her like a hungry tiger and kissed her fiercely before panting. "You don't learn what you should. Just you wait. When you're better, I'll teach you a lesson." Gong Coco snickered and took the opportunity to run away. After she jumped off the bed, she turned her head and made a face at him. "Then you can endure it now." After saying that, she went to change her clothes happily. Most of Gong Coco's clothes were custom-made, but today, in order not to be in the limelight, Gong Coco painfully chose a very plain dress and went out. When they arrived at the audition venue, it was already packed with people. Gong Coco's manager assigned her an assistant. The assistant looked very smart. After receiving Gong Coco, she quickly reported to her, "Sister Kiki, I heard that today's audition is very simple. All you have to do is perform. I also heard that director Jiang Chuanming is very interested in the ending song you played in Ming Xiao Chuan Chuan. When the time comes, you can continue to perform the zither." Gong Coco was a little embarrassed. Being called sister by a 23-year-old assistant, Wu Wintao, was really a strange feeling. She asked him a few questions, and he answered them one by one. It was obvious that he had put a lot of effort into her audition. However, the information that Wu Wintao could obtain was also known by others. This was especially true for Gong Kiki, who had been extremely popular these past few days. Her dazzling face was hard to ignore, and trouble naturally came knocking on their door. When Qian Guiyun, a B-list actress with some fame, saw Gong Coco, she glanced at her with jealousy. "I was wondering who this was. So it's a big celebrity these days. Gong Coco, you just got rid of your scandal, and you already got the chance to audition for director Jiang Chuanming. Your methods are pretty good. I wonder who you have as your backer?" Gong Kiki glanced at her. Her gaze seemed to say, "Is a nameless junior worthy of chatting with me?" So she lowered her head and looked at the synopsis, ignoring her. Seeing Gong Coco so arrogant, the other girls couldn't take it anymore. They had also heard that Jiang Chuanming especially liked the ending song of Ming Xiao Chuan 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 Chuan, so they had long seen Gong Coco as a rival. Someone sneered, "Look at her. It's as if she'll definitely be selected. Who is she looking down on?" She also said that she wrote the ending song of filial piety herself, so she must have hired someone to do it. Gong Coco frowned. She had never said that the song was composed by her, because it was not the first time she had composed her own songs. She did not need to steal other people's hard work. Presumably, the director of Ming Xiao Chuan said that to promote the film. But no matter what, it was not other people's turn to be jealous. Hence, Gong Coco said calmly, "Since the popular players are so good, you should go and look for them too. As for whether or not I'll be selected, your question is ridiculous. If I'm not going to be selected, why would I come here?" Gong Coco's words made everyone speechless. She was too arrogant. Coming to this audition was like going through the motions. This was the first time they had seen someone who dared to boast like this. Moreover, how could such a good song be created by a popular artist? How could it be given to someone else? Qian Guiyun was stunned for a moment before she said loudly, "Ayo, everyone listen to this. This woman is really shameless. She actually dares to say that she will be selected now. Could it be that she has slept with all the investors?" The girls on the side also showed disdain. Even if Gong Coco had cleared her name, they would still think of Gong Coco in the worst way. Gong Coco raised her eyebrows slightly. "Why don't I dare to say it? If I don't choose me, Should I choose you? You. Qin Guiyun originally wanted to turn hostile, but when she thought of where she was, she held back. She glared at Gong Coco and sneered. There will be times when you will be shameless. The others did not speak. They were all ready to see Gong Coco make a fool of herself. After all, who did not know that in this audition, in addition to Gong Coco, who had been in the limelight recently, there was also an A-list actress by Xiaoqi. And the biggest investor of Jiang Chuanming's new drama, Mother of the World, was Wang Baichuan. He was Bai Xiaoqi's backer. Speak of the devil. As soon as Bai Xiaoqi arrived, she heard someone boasting shamelessly and sneered. Now, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can come forward. In this drama directed by Jiang Chuanming, the female lead will eventually become an empress. How can a woman who sells her body be worthy of acting in Mother of the World? As soon as she arrived, many people stood up and were respectful. After all, in front of fame and experience, everyone present had to call Bai Xiaoqi teacher. Gong Coco saw that this person had targeted her as soon as she arrived, and a little anger emerged in her heart. She only smiled faintly. Just sitting there, she had an indescribable noble aura. I remember that in Mother of the World, the female lead has to act from the age of 14. Some people still want to act at 14 years old. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? Wasn't this saying that Bai Xiaoqi was old? Bai Xiaoqi's face instantly changed. She was already 30 years old. Her face could not be compared to Gong Coco, who was only 18 years old. Very good. Sister Gao Sun is right. You are a sharp-tongued vixen. Let's see how arrogant you can be later. Only then did Gong Kiki realize that this person was acquainted with Gao Sun. However, she wasn't afraid. Zhang Shanka had said that director Jiang Chuanming cared more about a person's ability than the power behind them. As long as she performed well, Jiang Chuanming would be able to persevere for her. She might not have confidence in other roles, but in a costume drama, Bai Xiaoqi saw that Gong Coco was so calm. She remembered that Sister Gao Sun said that there was someone behind Gong Coco, so she also called Wang Baichuan. It would be best if she could be selected internally. Let's see how Gong Coco would be embarrassed later. Chapter 930. Soon, it was Bai Xiaoqi's turn. Her call was still effective. After all, the others came out in a few minutes, but Bai Xiaoqi actually stayed inside for 15 minutes. After she came out, many people who wanted to curry favor with her immediately surrounded her. Teacher Bai, how do you feel? You must have been chosen. If I had known that Teacher Bai would come, I wouldn't have come. This show is clearly tailor-made for Teacher Bai. Bai Xiaoqi received a message from her sugar daddy and knew that he had already informed her. If nothing went wrong, this show would be hers. So she smiled a little proudly. Based on what they said, it should be most likely. Sigh, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint some people. Gong Coco glanced at her. Ignoring Wu Wentao's obstruction, she walked towards her. Why? Did they say they chose you? If it were any other time, Bai Xiaoqi wouldn't say this. But now that Gong Coco was provoking her like this, she subconsciously raised her head. That's right. I advise you not to embarrass yourself. This show is mine. How can a slut like you, who seduces other people's men, be worthy of fighting with me? Gong Coco smiled. It was her turn to be called. Gong Coco glanced at the people who were waiting to watch a good show. She raised her eyebrows and said, "We don't know who will win until the last second." With that, she walked straight inside. Bai Xiaoqi was so angry that her expression twisted. She had never seen such an arrogant newcomer. The person beside her quickly said, "Teacher Bai, don't worry. She'll know how to embarrass herself when she's chased out after a few minutes." Bai Xiaoqi said angrily, "A slut wants to compete with me. I'll wait here and see how she embarrasses herself." Wu Wentao stood at the side, feeling a little awkward. It was his first time as an assistant, and he had encountered such a situation. The battle between women was scarier than he had imagined. When Gong Coco entered, there were 5 people inside. The one sitting in the middle was Jiang Chuanming, and beside him was Wang Baichuan. There were 3 other people she didn't know. From the moment she walked in, she was already in the zone. It couldn't be said that from the moment she entered, she had regained the bearing of a princess in Dayu State. Her walking posture was different from that of modern people. It looked simple, but it would take 7 or 8 years of hard practice to walk with dignity and gentleness. She walked over, step by step. She seemed to be stepping on everyone's hearts. Zhang Chuanming's brows furrowed when he heard Wang Baichuan's request, but when he saw Gong Coco, his eyes lit up. "You are Gong Coco? You were the one who played the Rong and Hua Fu at the end of the Ming Dynasty?" Zhang Chuanming's heart was thumping. Hers is her words. Zhang's is his. Zhang Chuanming's heart, S's, S2's. Hers. He felt that this was the female lead he had been looking for. He held back his excitement and said, "Our audition is very simple. There are a lot of instruments behind you. Come and perform a talent." At this moment, Wang Baichuan, who was originally in a daze, suddenly remembered his lover's request. He suddenly interrupted and smiled with some bad intentions. "We already know that Miss Gong knows how to play the zither and is favored by our great director. How about this? Let's be fair. Miss Gong can perform another talent." Although Wang Baichuan was making things difficult for Gong Coco, he had thought it through. If Gong Coco was smart and took the initiative to contact him at night, he might not interfere with the audition results. His pair of small eyes stared unblinkingly at Gong Coco's face. Her skin was as smooth as cream, and her face was exquisite. Bai Xiaoqi, that 30-year-old woman, couldn't compare to her. Zhang Chuanming didn't expect Wang Baichuan to suddenly make things difficult for her. He had heard that Gong Coco played the zither very well. It was already good that she could specialize in one instrument. He didn't know if she could do well in another one. Gong Coco smiled faintly. When she looked at Wang Baichuan, there was a kind of contempt that came from above. Wang Baichuan's smile froze on his face, and he felt an inexplicable pressure. "Okay." Gong Coco actually agreed. She slowly turned around. Her light golden dress was as dazzling as the sun. Step by step, she walked in front of an instrument and held it in her hands. As the role model of the capital's young ladies, Gong Coco didn't need to know too many things. To be honest, the zither was an instrument that she wasn't very good at. She held the pipa and tested the tone. Then, she half sat on the zither stand. Obviously, this action wasn't elegant, but there was a kind of ancient charm to her. Her expression was noble and indifferent. It was as if she was a real young lady in the palace who played casually. She casually played a few notes. After thinking about it, she played a song that her mother had taught her. It was also the only pipa song that her mother knew, Floating Clouds Movement. At that time, her mother said that she had once used this song to dance for the Yuheng monarch. Her father was so jealous that he was sour for 3 days. Thinking of some beautiful memories, Gong Coco's fingers moved, and she began to play. She wasn't like some people who always made beautiful gestures when they were performing. She played very casually, but her temperament was elegant. It was as if she had returned to the time when her mother taught her how to play the pipa. Her appearance, even if she didn't say a word, was dazzling. So much so that when she finished the song, everyone came back to their senses. Zhang Chuanming glanced at the assistant director. His meaning was clear. It's her. The female lead they were looking for was multi-talented and had a noble temperament. Wasn't Gong Coco the best candidate? After Wang Baichuan came back to his senses, he felt that he was about to drool. How could there be such a beautiful and seductive woman? He glanced at Zhang Chuanming and knew that he was very satisfied with Gong Coco. At this time, as long as he made things difficult, Gong Coco would definitely beg him to be merciful for this opportunity. So he said loudly, "Miss Gong played really well, but our drama mother of the world doesn't have a pipa segment. Miss Gong, why don't you perform some other talent?" Gong Coco raised her eyebrows in displeasure. This person was always going against her. Did he think that she was easy to bully? Gong Coco sneered and asked, "I wonder what talent the female lead of Mother of the World, Shangguan Luyin, will perform? How about this, sir? Please say one. If she could do it, I could do it too. Then I'll consider it a pass. How about that?" Wang Baichuan laughed lewdly. He felt that Gong Coco was too easily provoked. She actually said such a thing. Could it be that she knew all 30 instruments behind her? So he quickly said, "Sure." If Miss Gong can pass my test, then for today's audition, I'll definitely support Miss Gong to pass. It's a promise. Gong Coco glanced behind her. Because it was a talent show, but it didn't matter what kind of talent it was, there would be a mix of modern and ancient instruments behind her. However, Gong Coco believed that Wang Baichuan wouldn't choose modern instruments. Chapter 931. Wang Baichuan's eyes kept rolling. He thought that with Gong Coco's temperament, her family education must be good. She definitely knew how to play the piano and violin. Therefore, he glanced at something and revealed a smirk. Miss Gong, just play it. Shangguan Luyun in the drama knows more than 20 instruments. She definitely knows how to play the kongho. Gong Coco laughed at him for slapping his own face. At first, he said that Shangguan Luyun in the drama didn't know how to play the pipa. Now he said that she knew many instruments and definitely knew how to play the kongho. But it didn't matter. She didn't know how to play in the modern era. But in the ancient era, everything was at her fingertips. When the fingertips that were called su patian by the netizens gently landed on the kongho, it was unexpectedly suitable. It was as if her hands were born to play instruments. Moreover, she didn't play to show off her skills, but to cultivate her temperament. Therefore, when she played, there was no acting at all. Every move was natural. The song Morning and Night Guide was played. It was a song that Jiang Chuanming had never heard before. If it was just one song, he would feel that he was ignorant. However, he had never heard of two such beautiful songs. There was only one explanation. This was an original song, and no one else had heard it before. His heart skipped a beat. Not only did he put Gong Coco into his camp, he also thought about whether he could buy these two songs from her to use as the opening and ending songs. Such classic songs couldn't be buried. As for Wang Baichuan, he had already thrown him to the back of his mind. If he couldn't find a suitable person, he could choose Bai Xiaoqi. After all, this woman had a certain reputation and appeal. However, when he met Gong Kiki, Bai Xiaoqi had long been tossed to the edge of the sky. If Wang Baichuan made a fuss, he would just find another investor. On the other hand, Wang Baichuan was intoxicated as he listened. Gong Coco's lowered eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. Then, she gathered her inner strength at her fingertips. Suddenly, a sound came out. Everyone only felt that it was pleasant to hear. But Wang Baichuan suddenly screamed and fell from his chair to the ground. Gong Coco stopped at the right time. Although her sound wave attack wasn't deep, it was enough to give this person a headache for a few days. President Wang, what happened to you? Everyone surrounded Wang Baichuan, and Wang Baichuan shouted that he had a headache. Jiang Chuanming had no choice but to stop the audition and send Wang Baichuan to the hospital. When the girls outside heard that Jiang Chuanming wanted to stop the audition, their expressions changed. So, they actually chose Gong Coco? Moreover, it was announced so quickly. Then, the crowd saw Wang Baichuan being helped out by someone. Many of them had a look of relief on their faces. It turned out that someone had suddenly fallen ill. In that case, they would not necessarily choose Gong Coco, but all the previous auditions would have a chance. Originally, Bai Xiaoqi saw Wang Baichuan unconscious and was sent to the hospital by the assistant director. She wanted to follow him, but Jiang Chuanming was still there. She felt lucky in her heart. If she was chosen, Wang Baichuan would not be important. Who didn't know that Jiang Chuanming's drama was the most popular? At that time, she could just find a new financial backer. At this moment, Gong Coco walked out. Her expression was normal. Wu Wentao quickly went up to her and asked, "How was it, Sister Kiki?" The director suddenly stopped the audition. "Were you chosen?" Before Gong Coco could speak, Qian Guiyun, who was beside Bai Xiaoqi, said, "You really think too highly of yourself. Teacher Bai is still here. How dare you covet the female lead?" Bai Xiaoqi crossed her arms and looked at Gong Coco. "I was wondering why you were in there for so long. Could it be that your performance was so bad that Judge Wang fell ill from anger and didn't know how to deal with it?" Gong Coco narrowed her eyes and looked at her. "You're so confident. If it wasn't you who was chosen, wouldn't you be so embarrassed that you wouldn't dare to go out?" Bai Xiaoqi was in a difficult position. How could she back down when she heard this? However, She was careful and mocked. If it wasn't me, it couldn't have been you. The people around her immediately chimed in. That's right. You should take a look at yourself first. You really think you're a big shot after rising to fame with those erotic videos? You actually want to fight with Teacher Bai? You're overestimating yourself. Is that so? Gong Coco lifted her skirt and said calmly. Then you can slap your own faces because director Jiang Chuanming chose me. When she came out just now, Jiang Chuanming had personally said this to her, but no one knew about it yet. Huh, she's really crazy about being famous. At this moment, Jiang Chuanming heard the noise outside and walked out to take a look. He said unhappily, "Didn't you say that you're not going to choose anymore? Why are you still here?" Someone quickly asked, "Director, who did you choose?" Although Bai Xiaoqi had greeted him, she still couldn't help but look at Jiang Chuanming. Jiang Chuanming didn't keep them in suspense and said directly, "Gong Coco. She's worthy of being Shangguan Luyun." His words made all the girls present seethe with excitement. They could accept anyone, but they couldn't accept Gong Coco. It was because Gong Coco was prettier than them, because Gong Coco was very arrogant, and also because they felt that Gong Coco had a stain on her reputation. They were 10,000 times better than her. Bai Xiaoqi was stunned. When she came back to her senses, she screamed, "How is that possible? There must be an inside story. I want to see Gong Coco's audition video." Bai Xiaoqi's expression was ugly, and the others also said, "That's right. This must be fake. We want to see the video." Jiang Chuanming thought about it and agreed. "I'll post the video online. You guys can go and see for yourselves." Then he said to Gong Coco, "You've worked hard today. I'll contact your manager." Gong Coco nodded. "Sorry to trouble you, director." Turning around, Gong Coco looked at Bai Xiaoqi, whose face was red, and smiled gently. "Didn't you just say that this position would definitely be yours? Does your face hurt now?" After saying that, she strode away with a smile, leaving behind an arrogant back view. This kind of face of a villain was really interesting, but she didn't have the desire to teach it a lesson because it was too low. When Gong Coco's manager heard that Gong Coco had been selected, he quickly signed a contract with Jiang Chuanming. At the same time, Gong Coco's video was exposed. Everyone realized that although Gong Coco was young, she was multi-talented, and they couldn't help but admire her. The two songs that had been signed as the opening and ending songs of Mother of the World were even more popular in the country. Whether it was her demeanor when she played or her skills, it was impossible for people to take their eyes off her. These two songs immediately became trending. Even the experts from China came out to say that these two songs were classics and that it would be difficult for anyone to surpass them in 100 years. However, Gong Coco didn't care about this. At this moment, she was browsing Weibo in her room. She didn't know why, but when she saw netizens praising her, she felt happy. Zhang Shanka felt that he had fallen out of favor. Chapter 932. I regret it. Zhang Shanka took the phone away from Gong Coco's hand. "You like someone else more than me now?" Gong Coco looked at him in confusion. "How can that be? I like you the most." Zhang Shanka wrapped her in his arms domineeringly and nestled on the sofa. He said fiercely, "I take back what I just said. What do you mean you like me the most? You should only like me." Gong Coco was stunned when she heard that. Then she snickered. Okay. I was wrong. The weather is so good today. Did the great CEO not go to work to take me out to play?" Zhang Shanka kissed her little face that was getting rosier and smiled. "I can't hide anything from you. Do you know how to read minds?" Gong Coco was excited when she heard that they could go out to play. "Where are we going to play? Didn't you say you wanted to go horse riding last time? Let's go today. I'll take you to meet two friends who grew up with you." Zhang Shanka's friends had already arrived at the Yunheng High-Level Racecourse Club. "Why did you call me out so early? Isn't it just a gathering of friends? Look at you rushing me," Sun Qin, who didn't know the inside story, said while drinking. Ray Luo was very tall and laughed loudly when he heard that. "Today is not an ordinary gathering. You still don't know, right? Boss Jiang is married. I forced him several times before he agreed to bring his wife out to meet people today. I must see what kind of fairy she is that he has been hiding. Married? Sun Qing's eyes widened in disbelief. I thought he would be alone for the rest of his life. I can't believe he got married out of the blue. However, his sister was more frightened than him. Sun Ning exclaimed and looked at Reiluo in disbelief. Brother Reiluo, you are joking, right? Reiluo said to Sun Ning regretfully. No, he's really married, so you should change your target. Previously, the little prince of country, Wai told me that he admires you very much and thinks you are a real lady. He wants to get to know you. I think he's a good candidate for marriage. Sun Ning sat there in a daze and didn't hear what Lelo was saying. Slowly, her eyes turned red. She couldn't believe that Jiang Shanka would get married just like that. He didn't give her any chance. She had been in love with him for 10 years. She had confessed to Jiang Shanka several times, but he had rejected her. She had thought that Jiang Shanka was not interested in women, but in the blink of an eye, he had married someone else. Sun Qing couldn't help but comfort his sister. All right. Even if he's married, he's still your brother Jiang. Although you can't marry him, this relationship can't be broken. Seeing Sun Qing's appearance as if he had suffered a huge blow, Sun Qing's consolation was useless. Indeed, as soon as she heard that Jiang Shanka was coming, her sister began to dress up early in the morning. In the end, when she heard the news, it was inevitable that her heart would break. All right, don't be sad. They'll be here soon. You don't want your brother Jiang's new wife to see you in such a state, do you? Only then did Sun Ning pull herself together. With a cold face, she thought to herself, I want to see what kind of woman can be together with brother Jiang. Speak of the devil. He's here. Lelo's voice made the Sun siblings look over. They saw Jiang Shanka and Gong Coco riding on the same horse, appearing in an absolutely abusive manner. As for Sun Ning, she stood up regardless of her bearing and looked at the woman who was firmly held in Jiang Shanka's arms in a protective manner. Gong Coco's skin was too white. When the sun fell on her body, it seemed to reflect light. Her delicate little face was as pure as an angel's. At this moment, she was wearing a red and black riding suit and was being held in Jiang Shanka's arms. When she raised her smiling face, there was a kind of sweetness that seeped into people's hearts. It was undeniable that when Sun Qing and Lelo saw her, they were infected by her pure beauty and were speechless for a moment. Sun Ying's usually gentle eyes revealed jealousy and hatred. This girl was good-looking, but no matter how good-looking she was not worthy of Jiang Shanka. Sun Qing said with some annoyance, If I had known that Jiang Shanka would bring such a beautiful girl, I would have brought two too. Now I can only watch him abuse us. Lelo laughed arrogantly. I didn't expect that among us, the most untalkative boss Jiang would be the first to marry a wife. His wife is so beautiful. He's really lucky. It's SOSO. Sun Ning suddenly spoke. If it was in the past, she would never have said such rude words, but she recognized who Gong Coco was. She was the female lead of the recent erotic video that had caused a stir, an 18th-tier actress. She must have deceived brother Jiang with such a person. Sun Qing looked at Sun Ning disapprovingly. Sister, how can you say that about someone you've just met? Just met? Sun Ying's cold and arrogant face showed ridicule. Brother, you have so many celebrity girlfriends. Can't you see who this woman is? Sun Qing heard this and took a closer look. She's Gong Coco. Oh my God, why is Jiang Shanka with this woman? Lelo was often abroad and said strangely, What's wrong with her? I think she's very clean and beautiful. She's a good match for Boss Jiang. Sun Qing's face turned cold. This woman had a lot of erotic videos exposed a few days ago. Although she cleared her name in the end, but Jiang Shanka is lowering himself by being with her. At this moment, Sun Ning couldn't help but run over. She wanted to expose this woman's true colors to brother Jiang. Brother Jiang. Jiang Shanka was introducing his friends not far away to Gong Coco and was strolling over. When he saw Sun Ning suddenly approach, he said unnaturally, She's Sun Qing's sister, Sun Ning. Jiang Shanka originally thought that only Sun Qing and Lelo had come, but he didn't expect Sunning to come as well. He hoped that she wouldn't do anything to upset Coco. When Gong Coco heard that this was the sister of Jiang Shanka's friend, she was about to get off her horse and greet her. Unexpectedly, before she could get off, Sunning glared at her coldly and said to Jiang Shanka, "Brother Jiang, why are you with her?" Sun Ying's words made the expressions of the two people on the horse change. Jiang Shanka's face darkened. "Ah Ying, this is my wife." He emphasized the word wife. "Please don't speak without thinking." "Wife?" Sunning looked at Gong Coco disdainfully. "A woman whose face and body are fantasized by all the men in the country is worthy of being your wife?" Sun Ying's rude words made Gong Coco suddenly not want to get off the horse. She raised her head and asked with a smile, "If I'm not worthy, who is? Are you worthy?" Sunning didn't expect Gong Coco to dare to rebuke her. Did she know who she was? Her family background was enough to make a woman like Gong Coco humble herself. She was just relying on Brother Jiang to pamper her. "Brother Jiang, don't be fooled by her. A woman of her status will only become your shame." Chapter 933. Enough! Jiang Shanka's displeased voice stunned Sunning. All along, Jiang Shanka had been polite to her. He had never spoken to her in such a tone. "What's wrong?" Lelo and Sun Qin ran over. Lelo said, "What's going on? It's not easy for everyone to get together. Why are you arguing?" This time, Sun Qin was on his sister's side, because he also thought that Jiang Shanka had never been in a relationship before, so he had been deceived by this woman with bad character. "Jiang Shanka, don't tell me you haven't seen the news a few days ago? I was wondering how an 18th-tier actress could clear her name by herself. So, it was you who helped her behind her back? Don't be fooled by her." Sun Qin's words made Jiang Shanka very unhappy. He swept his cold eyes over him and looked down condescendingly. "If you keep talking about Coco like that, we can't even be friends." "You!" Sun Qin's eyes widened in disbelief. He didn't expect Jiang Shanka to say such things to his brother, who had grown up with him, for a woman. Lelo was also shocked and hurriedly tried to smooth things over. "Did you guys eat shit? It's Boss Jiang's freedom to marry whoever he wants. Is there a need to have such a big reaction?" Lelo said to Sun Qin first. "And you, boss, it's not like you don't know Sun Qin's personality. Your words just now were too harsh." Sunning saw that her brother and Brother Jiang were arguing as soon as Gong Coco appeared. She was even more dissatisfied, especially when she saw that Gong Coco wasn't afraid at all. Instead, she laughed. "What are you laughing at? Are you happy to see Brother Jiang turn against his brother because of you?" Gong Coco leaned back and leaned closer to Jiang Shanka. She smiled proudly and said, "That's right. I'm happy to prove that I'm important to him." "Why? Are you jealous?" "Brother, look at her." Sunning almost said the word vixen. Sun Qin pulled Sunning behind him and looked at Gong Coco with a straight face. Jiang Shanka also hugged Gong Coco even tighter, directly indicating which side he was on. However, Gong Coco definitely wouldn't let Jiang Shanka get into an argument because of her, so she said slowly, "Mr. Sun, Miss Sun, I have nothing to say about the fact that you hate me because of what happened on the internet, because rumors stop with the wise. But after all, not everyone is wise. However, since I'm already here, you should at least give me a chance to prove myself. Whether I'm worthy of Jiang Shanka or not, we'll use our strength to speak for us." Hearing her words, Sun Qin became a little interested, so Miss Gong is very capable. Gong Coco smiled faintly. "SOSO, just a little better than your sister." "You!" Sun Ying could not help but stand up. She glanced at Jiang Shanka and said coldly, "Do you know who I am? Do you know how many years my family has been prosperous for? Our heritage is not something that some people who have learned a little and don't know the immensity of heaven and earth can compare to." Comparing her to an 18th-tier celebrity was simply an insult to her. Jiang Shanka wanted to speak, but he was stopped by Gong Coco. She stopped smiling, raised her chin slightly, and spoke in a rhythmic tone. "It's the first time we meet, and you're already following the outside world because of the rumors." Then, Can I also question your entire family's upbringing because of your shallowness? Damn it. Sunning was originally a cold and delicate lady. This was the first time she wanted to slap someone so much. It was a pity that Gong Coco was sitting on a horse, so she couldn't reach her. You're so sharp-tongued. No wonder someone took that kind of video. Gong Coco smiled faintly. As you can see, I don't know how to speak, and I'm too outstanding. Isn't it normal for people to be jealous and smeared? Sunning was so angry that she couldn't speak. Lelo listened from the side and couldn't help but laugh. Boss Jiang, your wife is quite interesting. Sun Qin also felt that his sister was a little embarrassed today, so he quickly pulled her back. It seems that neither of us can convince the other. Forget it, let's forget about this. Gong Coco shook her head. I've been insulted by you siblings the moment I arrived. It's not something you can just let go of. Let's talk with our strength. There are so many events at the racecourse. As long as you can beat me in any one of them, it's your win. After all, I don't want my husband to be unhappy because of me. What a big tone. Sunning sneered. What right do you have to issue a challenge? Was she looking down on Gong Coco's status? Before Gong Coco could speak, Jiang Shanka behind her said, She doesn't, but I do. Jiang Shanka hugged Gong Coco and smiled calmly. Since you have misunderstood my wife, it's fine. Let's just resolve it. I wonder if my reputation is enough? He said this while looking at Sun Qin. Sun Qin was a bit annoyed. He had been led astray by his little sister and said some rude words. However, Gong Kiki's arrogance made him a bit angry. He wanted to see what ability Gong Kiki had, so he nodded. Sure, I apologize for my rudeness just now. Next, let my sister play with Miss Gong. No need. Gong Coco smiled faintly. Any of you can go up. I haven't moved in a long time. I really miss it. Her arrogance made them all speechless. Sunning saw that she was sitting on a horse and still needed Jiang Shanka's protection. She smiled coldly. All right, then let's compete in horse racing first. Jiang Shanka glanced at Gong Coco. Gong Coco only said one sentence. It's my honor. Then, she turned her head to look at Jiang Shanka and ordered, My dear, please give me a lucky kiss. Jiang Shanka looked at Gong Coco in amusement. This girl was doing it on purpose. He had never seen her take the initiative before, just because Sunning looked at him with resentment. Jiang Shanka smiled lightly at the small face that was close to his mouth. Then, in front of everyone, he gently pinched her chin and gave her a romantic French kiss. Gong Coco's face instantly turned red. She had only wanted to get close to Jiang Shanka and anger this Sunning. Jiang Shanka, how could he be so bold? The gazes of the three people below the horse made Gong Coco's back feel as if it was on fire. She didn't want to be looked down upon, so she cooperated with Jiang Shanka's kiss. After the kiss, it was as if the world had quieted down. Little guy, isn't this kiss lucky enough? Those eyes that were filled with warmth and a smile made Gong Coco's dizzy brain instantly come back to its senses. She glared at Jiang Shanka in annoyance. She bit her lip. That's enough, you. Get off quickly. Seeing that she was shy, Jiang Shanka wanted to do it again. But Leroy, who was at the side, couldn't take it anymore. Heavens! I'm a man, but I actually saw the pink bubbles just now. This is too cruel. I want to find a girlfriend. Jiang Shanka glanced at him proudly. No matter how you look, you won't be able to find a girl like Kiki. And she's already mine. With that, he jumped off his horse and glanced at Sun Qin. Next is the ladies' battlefield. Clear the field. Chapter 934. Sun Ying's expression was extremely gloomy as she mounted a horse. She said coldly to Gong Coco, I really hope your strength is as powerful as your mouth. Gong Coco rode her horse with her back ramrod straight. The soft light danced on her hair, making her face appear even more fair and transparent. Her every frown and smile was very pure. However, when her cat eyes swept around, her noble aura followed like a shadow, making Sun Ying feel pressured. Don't worry, I won't let you down. Gong Coco smiled casually. Sun Ying tightened her grip on the reins. She thought to herself, I can't lose to a small-time actress. After the track was cleared, The referee gave the order. Both of them rushed out like arrows leaving the bow. Both of their horses were pure-blooded horses, so their speed was about the same. The only thing they could compare was their skills. Gong Coco rode her black horse side by side with Sun Ying's date red horse. However, Sun Ying's face was tense, and her forehead was sweating. Gong Coco's expression was very relaxed. She glanced at Sun Ying and directly left her behind at the first bend. On the high platform, Raylo couldn't help but exclaim softly, "That's amazing! I thought Ai Ying's riding skills were already the best. I didn't expect this Miss Coco to be so amazing. She almost easily surpassed Ai Ying." Jiang Shanka smiled faintly. Although his little fellow was ignorant and harmless, she wasn't a cat without claws. Her dignity was inviolable, and she wouldn't do anything she wasn't confident in. However, Jiang Shanka was secretly alarmed. On the way here, he told Coco that there were more than 30 competitions and entertainment events. Coco had just said that they could choose. Could it be that she knew all of them? Jiang Shanka was a little regretful that she was so dazzling. He didn't want any overconfident people to appear and covet his woman. Sun Qin was even more regretful. If he had known, he wouldn't have said those words in the spur of the moment. After calming down and thinking about it, how could Jiang Shanka be deceived by a woman? He was really blinded by his concern. It seemed that this Gong Coco's real character was definitely not like what the internet said. He would apologize to her later. For Gong Coco, horse racing was a piece of cake. Modern people rode horses for fun. Back then, she rode a horse instead of walking. There was no comparison at all. Therefore, she easily beat Sun Ying. She reached the finish line for more than 10 seconds before Sun Ying crossed the finish line, panting. Gong Coco raised his head slightly and looked down at her. "You've lost." Sun Ying almost ground her teeth to pieces. How could she? She was so proud of her equestrian skills. How could she lose to an actress like Gong Coco? One had to know that riding a horse was not a commoner's skill. How could this woman, who relied on her body, have so much money to enrich herself? Just then, the men came up to them. "Amazing! Kiki, you looked so cool on horseback just now." Lello desperately searched for compliments in his mind. "Valiant. It was dazzling. Also, did you know that you casually broke the highest record in the racecourse just now?" Gong Coco smiled faintly. However, when she saw Jiang Shanka, her cat eyes narrowed proudly, as if to say, "Am I super awesome? Why aren't you praising this queen?" Jiang Shanka was amused by his own imagination. He raised the red wine glass in his hand and smiled gently. "Are you thirsty? Drink some wine." When Gong Coco heard this, she finally lowered her arrogant head. She bent over to Jiang Shanka's raised hand and sipped the bright red liquid in the glass. Her long eyelashes drooped, her delicate and beautiful petal-like lips and the bright crystal glass. The ruby-like red wine formed a painting that people couldn't take their eyes off. The sunlight cast a soft light on this scene. Jiang Shanka looked at it from a close distance and suddenly felt thirsty. He took the wine glass and drank it in one gulp. Then he took a step forward and directly kissed Gong Coco's lips. Under her astonished gaze, he passed the wine to her bit by bit and gave her a long kiss. Gong Coco was stunned. She was still sitting on the horse, but Jiang Shanka's right hand was in the hair behind her head. He held her down, making it impossible for her to escape. She could only swallow the sweet wine bit by bit. It was as if she was drunk and couldn't think anymore. Not to mention the 3 people present. Even the staff at the side couldn't stand this scene and covered their chests. Watching 2 beautiful people kissing was already very seductive, not to mention this unexpected romance. Even Gong Coco couldn't control herself. Her body was a little weak. Only by supporting herself with both hands on his shoulders did she not fall off the horse. It was so hot. She had become so strange. Jiang Shanka's eyes darkened as he ended the kiss. If he continued to kiss her, he might do something that would make him lose his composure. He still underestimated Gong Coco's attraction to him. He was seduced by her every minute and second. "This is your reward because you won the competition." His gentle voice could directly turn the other party into spring water. Seeing that Gong Coco was still staring at his lips in a daze, Jiang Shanka said ambiguously, "Baby, why are you looking at me like this? Are you still thirsty?" Oh, oh my God. I want to go home. I want to go home now. Rero, who had just come back to his senses, went berserk. I really can't stay here any longer. This is simply 100,000 critical hits to my young heart. He was a 1.9-meter tall man who was muttering so loudly that Gong Coco shrank back on the horse as if she had been electrocuted. Damn it, how did she almost lose her composure in front of outsiders? Gong Coco glared fiercely at Jiang Shanka, but he just smiled calmly. Although he was just standing there casually, everything around him had become the background. Under the sunlight, his handsome face was like the world's most exquisite sculpture that had been resurrected, and his eyes were intoxicating with affection. Gong Coco swallowed her saliva calmly. It wasn't her fault, but this man's appearance was too seductive. On the other side, Sun Ying's expression could no longer be described as terrifying. The reins were almost broken by her delicate little hands, and Sun Qin was convinced. Naturally, he pulled his sister and asked her to maintain her poise. "Miss Gong is really amazing. This time, you won," Sun Qin said calmly, but before he could apologize, Sun Ying suddenly said, "That doesn't count," Sun Ying said with some difficulty. Her horse was bought by Brother Jiang with a lot of money. It's a professionally trained top-notch horse. Although my horse is also a pure-blooded horse, it's just for fun after all. It hasn't been systematically trained. This was sophistry. Sun Qin's face was a little red. He really didn't expect that his sister, who had always been virtuous, would say such ungentlemanly words. Gong Coco raised her eyebrows and smiled. "It's okay. What do you want to play? I'll accompany you. Anyway, Darling said that he took me out to have fun on a special day off today." She emphasized the words "special day," and Sun Ying pursed her lips tightly. She was afraid that as soon as she opened her mouth, she would curse and abuse like a country woman. Chapter 935. They all knew how single-minded Jiang Shanka was, but Gong Coco had refreshed their understanding of such a person time and time again. It turned out that Jiang Shanka could be so gentle, so unreasonable, so romantic. When she thought of the kiss Jiang Shanka gave Gong Coco, she felt her heart ache. She scanned through all the events here in her mind, and when she saw Gong Coco's hand, she suddenly smiled coldly. "Your riding skills are not bad. It seems that your archery skills are also good. Let's compete in this." When she said this, Lelo showed a disapproving expression. One had to know that if it weren't for her identity, Sun Ying's riding and archery skills would have almost been recruited to the national team. How could Gong Coco's pair of white and tender hands and muscle-less arms be a match for Sun Ying? Gong Coco sighed. If Sun Ying had chosen golf or something, she would have had to work hard to learn it on the spot. But archery? Modern people had a problem. They thought that some ancient things were learned by fewer people and were more advanced, so they subconsciously skipped some modern things, but they didn't know. She was an ancient person. "Archery? I played before. Let's go." She wasn't lying. She was just playing and didn't delve into this matter. After all, there were no wars in her era. But she had martial arts, so shooting a willow tree from 100 paces was a piece of cake for her. Sun Ying racked her brains. She had to defeat Gong Coco and frustrate her spirit. She wanted to let Jiang Shanka know that she, whether it was her identity or her talent, she was the one who was the most worthy of him. When Jiang Shanka saw that Gong Coco wanted to play, he naturally indulged her, so he took her to the riding and archery field. Lelo hurriedly followed, and Sun Qin said to Sun Ying somewhat unhappily, "Sister, you were too rude just now. This time, no matter if you win or lose, you're not allowed to be willful. Do you hear me?" Sun Ying didn't say anything. She just lowered her head and clenched her fists. How could outsiders understand her feelings? If no one could conquer Jiang Shanka, then so be it. But she absolutely would not allow such a woman to occupy the position of Madame Jiang. When they arrived at the riding and shooting range, Gong Coco did not dismount from her horse. she said to Sunning. Please. Sunning did not refuse. If she performed well, 3 arrows would be enough to make Gong Coco lose all her confidence and perform abnormally. She took a deep breath. On the other side, Jiang Shanka and Gong Coco didn't even look at her. Little fellow, what else do you know that I don't know? Gong Coco snorted proudly. This princess knows a lot of things. Do I need to report them to you one by one? When Jiang Shanka saw her raise her chin again, he wished he could drag her down from the horse and give her a good rub. I'll deal with you when we get back. At this moment, someone was recording the score. 9 points. It turned out that Sun Ying had already shot an arrow. At this moment, the web between her thumb and forefinger was numb, but she subconsciously looked at Jiang Shanka. Lelo exclaimed, "You can still have such accuracy at such a distance. Ying, your small body really contains a lot of energy." Sun Ying was a little proud. Her family had spent a lot of money to cultivate her, and she was a studious person. She was different from ordinary daughters of aristocratic families. She was much stronger than them. Unexpectedly, Jiang Shanka only glanced at her and smiled faintly but didn't say anything. Could it be that Gong Coco was better than her? No. She had been to this open-air riding and shooting range many times and was very familiar with the venue. Moreover, they were now further away than the standard distance. Gong Coco couldn't have such arm strength, vision, and strength. They must have felt that it didn't matter if they lost. After all, Brother Jiang and her brother were friends and didn't want to make things too stiff. That was why he was so calm and let Gong Coco play as she pleased. She calmed herself down and then shot another arrow. 8. Hearing this score, Lelo praised again, but Sun Ying was not satisfied. She adjusted her mentality and shot the last arrow. 9-3. Hearing the score, Sun Ying couldn't help but curl her lips. This was her best score in the past 2 years. She didn't believe that Gong Coco could surpass her. It was Gong Coco's turn. Unexpectedly, she rode her horse and had no intention of dismounting. Gong Coco, do you want to shoot from horseback? Sun Ying thought with an ugly face. She felt that Gong Coco was too cunning. She must have thought that she would lose. In order to make it less embarrassing, she deliberately shot from horseback. If she lost, she would say that it was because she was riding on horseback and so on. Gong Coco didn't want to explain too much. She took the bow and arrow handed over by the waiter, weighed it, and then shot an arrow at random. 8. Impossible, Sun Ying shouted. She couldn't believe that there were no calluses on Gong Coco's fingers. Ever since she learned how to shoot from horseback, even if she took good care of it, her hands would still have calluses. Moreover, Gong Coco's attitude when shooting was very casual, as if she was trying her hand. How could it be? It must be an accident. It must be. How could she have known that Gong Coco had inner strength? How could she hurt her hand? Gong Kiki smiled faintly. She sat on the back of the horse that was moving nonstop and shot another arrow with her back ramrod straight. At that moment, her eyes focused and her slightly raised chin tightened, as if she was a real noble who couldn't be offended. His attitude was casual, but the second arrow pierced through the air with a ferocious force. The scorekeeper's voice paused for a second. Then he shouted, 8. Although it was 8, and it was very far away. Everyone saw that Gong Coco's second arrow had directly burst the first arrow. She had split it into 2. If the first arrow was a coincidence, then what about the second arrow? To be able to split the first arrow from such a distance without any mistake, this skill was even more eye-catching than 10 points. At that moment, Sun Ying felt greatly humiliated. Even the staff looked at her with pity in their eyes, and some were even gloating over her misfortune. How could she bear it? However, Gong Coco maliciously pulled out the third arrow and asked softly, "Is there a need to shoot this third arrow?" Gong Kiki smiled as she looked at Sun Ying. Seeing that her brother was on good terms with Jiang Shanka, she didn't want to be ruthless. Therefore, she maintained her composure and asked this question. If Sun Ying was smart enough, she would have gone along with the flow. Unexpectedly, Sun Ying stopped Sun Qin, who was about to speak, and said through gritted teeth, "Come down, stand where you are and shoot. She still had a glimmer of hope in her heart. Perhaps Gone Coco was so good on horseback because she had undergone equestrian archery training, then she wouldn't be as good as on horseback. Gone Coco sighed. She felt that modern girls were good at everything, but they were especially stubborn. They didn't know when to advance or retreat like the noble ladies of ancient times. But what she didn't know was that ever since she found out that Jiang Shanka had married her, Sunning no longer knew what retreat was. She only wanted to beat Gone Coco and ruthlessly trample on her. Gone Kiki jumped off the horse's back. Her simple movements were executed with exceptional nimbleness and grace. She raised her bow and aimed at the grass target, her attitude still casual. But at this moment, her feet suddenly swayed. What's wrong? Jiang Shanka was the first to realize that something was wrong. The smile on his face disappeared, and he quickly ran over. Chapter 936. Gone Coco pouted in Jiang Shanka's arms and said embarrassedly, I don't seem to be feeling well. When Sunning heard this, she seemed to have caught something and said loudly, Don't tell me you can't do it after getting off the horse. She snorted. How can someone who is proficient in horseback archery have such poor stamina? You're clearly shirking. Jiang Shanka was thinking about something else. Counting the days, it seemed that Gone Coco's period was coming soon. Her period had always been irregular, but she would show signs of poor stamina in the first few days. Thus, he quickly took off his suit jacket and wrapped it around Gone Coco. All right, let's not compete anymore. Go rest. Sun Qin heaved a sigh of relief. His little sister was truly unreasonable. If Gone Kiki were to easily defeat her, even he, as her brother, would feel ashamed. Seeing that Gone Coco was feeling unwell, Leroy definitely wouldn't say anything, but Sunning wouldn't. She used almost all the strength she had in her life to stand up and say, How much strength does it take to shoot an arrow? How much time will it take? If you don't dare, then admit defeat. Admit that you're not as good as me. Otherwise, spend 2 minutes and finish this competition. Jiang Shanka saw that Sun Ying's face was flushed red and was a little displeased. She wouldn't give up until all hope was gone, but there was no need for his baby to waste time with her. Gone Coco saw that Jiang Shanka's face had darkened and knew that he was going to say something outrageous. She quickly held him down. Anyway, Sunning was right. It didn't take much strength to shoot an arrow. Since she didn't give up, then she would convince her. However, Gone Coco's big cat eyes flashed with craftiness. How dare she make things difficult for her? She had to make this Miss Sun give up completely. So she said, All right, you're right. It doesn't take much time anyway. I'll just play. Everyone's expressions were different. Jiang Shanka frowned. Just as he was about to disagree, Gone Coco pulled him and acted coquettishly. But I really don't have any strength left. Darling, help me draw the bow. No way. Sunning was the first to object. Brother Zhang's equestrian archery skills are superb. You are obviously trying to cheat. Back then, she had trained hard because Jiang Shanka was good at horseback archery. Gone Coco smiled and took out a piece of silk from Jiang Shanka's suit pocket. Then, she used it to cover Jiang Shanka's eyes. Is this okay? Miss Sun. Sunning couldn't think of any rebuttal for a while, mainly because Jiang Shanka actually allowed Gone Coco to mess around and was very cooperative. This was something she couldn't accept. Gone Coco smiled proudly. That's right. Her goal was not to win against Sunning at all. If it was just archery, Sunning might not be able to play anymore after this competition. She wanted to make her give up hope at the source. Like Jiang Shanka? Humph! She's mine! Jiang Shanka was originally unwilling, but after listening to Gone Coco's suggestion, he let her do as she pleased. He also wanted Sun Ying to give up. After all, he was already married and liked his wife very, very much. Thus, under everyone's gaze, Jiang Shanka blindfolded his eyes and drew the bow into a full moon. As he was only wearing a fitted shirt, his arm muscles showed the perfect lines. It wasn't hard to imagine that not only did his body look thin with clothes on, but it was also well-proportioned. It wouldn't be too much if it was too little, if it was too little, if it was too little. The surrounding waiters exclaimed in surprise. They only felt that this man's casual actions were too eye-catching. Gong Coco smiled and walked over. She wrapped her arms around his body from behind and hugged him in front of everyone. The sunlight shone on their bodies. At that moment, their bodies were equally tall and slender, yet inseparable. Gong Coco smiled as she adjusted Jiang Shanka's aim bit by bit. Her small hand held the bowstring with difficulty. Her white and tender palm pressed against the back of Jiang Shanka's honey-colored hand. His heart seemed to be grabbed by this small hand. This girl was always seducing him. Focus. Gong Coco stood on her tiptoes and whispered in his ear. Her entire body was pressed against Jiang Shanka's straight back. One was firm and firm. The other was gentle and beautiful. It inexplicably made people's hearts beat faster and their cheeks heat up. Jiang Shanka's entire body was stiff. Gong Coco's softness made him a little restless. He felt that if this continued, the one who would lose face would not be Sun Ying, but him. So he almost subconsciously shot an arrow. Others thought that it was because Gong Coco had adjusted her aim, but Gong Coco knew that Jiang Shanka had already memorized the position. He could hit it with his eyes closed. 10 points. The scorekeeper was extremely excited. This girl was too amazing. She could hit someone when they pulled the bow for her, and it was 10 points. At that moment, Sun Ying could no longer bear the humiliation and ran away crying. It wasn't that she couldn't accept losing, but she couldn't accept losing to Gong Coco. Losing to Gong Coco wouldn't have made her so desperate. What made her desperate was that when the two of them held the arrow together, there was no room for outsiders to interfere with that kind of tacit understanding and sweetness. Just one look at it was enough to break her heart. Sun Qin hurriedly chased after her. Lelo originally wanted to praise Gong Coco, but when he saw the two of them standing side by side, he realized that he was a bit of a third wheel. "That I'll go take a look." Lelo hurriedly slipped away. He thought that he should go to the VIP seats and drink some wine to calm himself down. Today's shock was a bit too much. Jiang Shanka was a little helpless. He reached out to pull the silk scarf over his eyes, but he was pulled back by Gong Coco. Under everyone's gaze, she stood in front of Jiang Shanka and raised her head proudly. "I originally wanted to use the third arrow to split the second arrow. Who told you to hit the bullseye? I don't care. I'm going to punish you." Jiang Shanka had a doting smile on his face. He raised his hands and said helplessly, Okay. My princess, how are you going to punish me?" Gong Coco snickered. "Just pinch my face." Jiang Shanka was slightly stunned. There are a lot of people here. I'll pinch your face when we get back." "Okay." "No, pinch it now. Quick, bend down." The kind laughter of the waiters around them could be heard. This couple was really too loving. Jiang Shanka thought about it and threw away his face as the CEO. He bent down slightly. His face was a little red, but when he heard Gong Coco's cheerful laughter, he felt that it was no big deal for a man to lose face for his woman. Seeing him squat down, Gong Coco smiled proudly with her hands on her hips. Jiang Shanka didn't wait for Gong Coco's punishment. Instead, his lips were warm and a familiar fragrance wrapped around him. He was shocked. Gong Coco actually took the initiative to kiss him in front of outsiders. Gong Coco kissed him with a red face. Her heart was finally balanced. Who told him to take advantage of her when feeding her wine? He made her blush, and her heart beat for a long time. She wanted revenge. Who knew that just as she was about to speak, she was caught by Jiang Shanka. Her red lips were once again forcefully occupied by Jiang Shanka. He sneaked up on her again. Chapter 937. It was too torturous. The waiters at the side all covered their eyes. How could they be so good-looking? Even their kiss made people feel like pink bubbles. How could they let bystanders live? Gong Coco was almost suffocated by Jiang Shanka's kiss. When she thought about how she had been kissed by Jiang Shanka in front of so many people, she felt so ashamed that she couldn't show her face. She originally wanted to see Jiang Shanka embarrassed. After Gong Coco came to her senses, she angrily pushed Jiang Shanka away and ran away. After Jiang Shanka pulled the scarf off his eyes, He looked at Gong Coco's angry back and couldn't help but laugh. He felt strangely relaxed, and there was an indescribable joy in his heart. Pinching the scarf, he raised his eyebrows slightly. If he had known, he would have let her have her way. Now that she ran away in embarrassment, he still had to coax her. But she was so cute. When Gong Coco ran out in a huff, she accidentally bumped into someone. She was a little annoyed and subconsciously apologized. "I'm sorry, are you okay?" Gong Kiki raised her head and realized that the other party might be fine, but the set of clothes had been destroyed by the red wine in his hand. The clothes of the rich were all disposable, and the other party seemed to be quite rich. This set of clothes might have cost a few $100,000. She sighed in her heart. Great. She had to be in debt before she even started to earn money. "That? I'll compensate you for the clothes," Gong Coco said softly. When Pinchio looked at the girl in front of him with a new idea, he was just about to look for her when she bumped into him. Could this be fate? He raised the wine glass and smiled evilly. "How do you plan to compensate me, you impudent girl?" Gong Coco heard this and said, "I forgot to bring my phone." "Well, when my husband finds me later, he'll compensate me." He didn't expect her to be married? When Pinchio raised his eyebrows in surprise because with his eyesight, Gong Coco was definitely a virgin. Could it be that her husband couldn't do it? He asked very gently, "Who is your husband?" Gong Coco didn't rashly say Jiang Shanka's name. She just frowned with some annoyance. "Oh no, the number is already saved. She doesn't know Jiang Shanka's mobile phone number. Now I can only wait for him to find me." Seeing that Gong Coco did not speak, Wen Pingxiu said good-naturedly, "I'm Wen Pingxiu. What's your name? Just now, I saw you shooting arrows on a galloping horse. You are very good." In the face of other people's praise, Gong Coco was still very calm. She replied, "I'm not that amazing. I'm Gong Coco. Thank you for your praise." When Pingxiu saw that she had no intention of chatting more and was just anxiously waiting for someone, he felt a little regretful. Girls usually flocked to him wherever he went. It was rare for him to be interested in a girl, but she did not like him. Was it because she had just kissed her husband? When Pingxiu shook his wine glass, it didn't matter. As long as he liked it, there was nothing he couldn't get. Therefore, he said warmly, "How about this? I'm going to change my clothes. Miss Gong, please come with me. I know that you're the guest of the gentleman who booked the race course today. I'll get someone to inform him. When your husband arrives, you can leave, okay?" When Gong Coco heard this, she felt that what he said made sense. She couldn't let him wait here in dirty clothes. Although she was a little unwilling, his request was not excessive. Anyway, she had martial arts, so she was not afraid of anything. What he was angry about was that Jiang Shanka had not come to find her, making her feel very awkward now. When Pingxiu saw that Gong Coco had agreed, he was very happy. He directly brought Gong Coco to his private changing room. Along the way, Gong Coco was waiting for Jiang Shanka to come and redeem her. However, the man in front of her was still quite gentlemanly. He did not make her feel uncomfortable, but she could not see through him, so she subconsciously kept her guard up. In the changing room, when Pingxiu was changing his clothes, Gong Coco sat outside and waited a little anxiously. Didn't she already ask someone to inform Jiang Shanka? Why wasn't he here yet? What she did not know was that in order to stay with her for a little longer, when Pingxiu did not inform Jiang Shanka at all. Jiang Shanka was currently looking for her everywhere. At this moment, when Pingxiu's gentle voice came from inside, "Miss Gong, my arm is injured. Can you come over and help me?" Gong Coco looked at the waiter beside her unwillingly. When Pingxiu said again, "I don't really like waiter touching me," Gong Coco had no choice. Who asked her to be the instigator? And now she was still in debt. However, she was still on guard. After all, she was no longer the ignorant girl when she first arrived. She asked at the door, "May I ask if you have finished changing your pants?" In this time and space, it was normal for a man to bare his upper body. However, because of her brother's education, she still could not accept a man wearing shorts or appearing in front of her with his lower body disheveled. When Pingxiu paused for a moment, then said with a smile, "Don't worry, Miss Gong. I have no intention of taking advantage of you." Gong Coco pushed the door open and walked in. Sure enough, when Ping Xiu was sitting there with his clothes on. One of the sleeves of his shirt was not pulled up. Gong Coco heaved a sigh of relief and went over to help. There was indeed an injury on his elbow. He did not lie to her. In an independent space, when Ping Xiu sized up the delicate face that was close to him, and his expression was dazed for a moment. He could be considered an old hand in love, but he had never seen a girl as clean as Gong Coco. Even if she did nothing, even if she stood there, she was like a ray of light. Such a girl had a fatal attraction to people in the dark. When Ping Xiu said, "Miss Gong seems to know a lot. I wonder what other sports do you like besides equestrian archery?" Gong Coco carefully helped him put on his sleeves and said, "I'm just playing around. I don't specialize in anything." When Ping Xiu's eyes lit up, "So Miss Gong knows everything? That's really amazing." Women would never refuse praise, not to mention that the other party was an outstanding and handsome man. Gong Coco dressed him with a serious face. She turned a blind eye to the beautiful muscles in front of her. Instead, it was as if she was facing a great enemy. What should she do? Zhang Shanka seemed to have said that other men were not allowed to get close to her. Then, if she got close to other men, would he be angry? It's just a small trick. Gong Coco buttoned up when Ping Xiu. The other party's exquisite six-pack abs and tight waist were enough to make any woman drool. However, Gong Coco felt that he was too thin. She still liked a stronger figure. When she thought of today's archery with Zhang Shanka in her arms, his tall figure allowed her to at most wrap around half of his body. Moreover, Zhang Shanka's muscles were even more beautiful. They were not exaggerated, but they were very tough. Thinking of this, Gong Coco secretly swallowed her saliva and then despised herself. Seriously, she was a princess after all. At this moment, she was actually thinking about a man's body? It was too scary. When Ping Xiu saw this scene, he laughed in his heart. He knew that no one could escape his charm. Chapter 938. Intentionally or unintentionally, he moved closer to Gong Coco. He wanted to see her panicked expression, but his mouth was full of regret. If only I could have met Miss Gong earlier. Miss Gong is really the perfect partner in my heart. Gong Coco, who was trying her best to button up, was stunned for a moment, but did not say anything. When Ping Xiu felt that she must be regretting it now, he smiled wickedly, and a pair of electrifying eyes fell on Gong Coco's fair face, full of affection. "I wonder if Miss Gong can leave me your phone number? I don't have any friends in Haidian City. I really want to make friends with someone as interesting as Miss Gong." Gong Coco calmly buttoned up the top button of his shirt before looking at him and saying, "I'm afraid not. If my husband knew that I made friends with a gentleman, he would definitely be jealous." When Ping Xiu's eyes flashed with deep thought, it seemed that this girl was very afraid of her husband. This was a bit difficult. He revealed a regretful expression, and those lonely eyes made Gong Coco feel as if she had bullied someone. "All right, please forgive my rudeness, Miss Gong. I just like people like Miss Gong too much." Being repeatedly hinted at by a young, handsome, and rich man, a slightly vain woman might be soft-hearted. However, Gong Coco was not. She felt that this man's gentle gaze revealed a certain determination, which made her a little unhappy. "Why isn't my husband here yet? Did your people really inform him?" When Ping Xiu chuckled, "He must have gone, but why isn't your husband here?" His eyes flashed with deep thought. Maybe he was held back by something. There are many special maids at the racecourse, and many people go there without their wives. In other words, it was better if she was not there? Gong Coco was a little angry. "How about this? Get your people to follow me to get the money. Waiting like this is a waste of time." Waste? When Ping Xiu moved closer, to be able to stay with Miss Gong, no matter how long the time is, it becomes infinitely short. I hope that he will never come. Gong Coco stepped back subconsciously, but when Ping Xiu suddenly took a step forward, pressed her against the wall with his uninjured right hand, and whispered affectionately, "Miss Gong, I can't deny that I fell in love with you at first sight. Regardless of whether it was your heroic figure in the racecourse or your archery skills, I was deeply captivated. The dirty clothes were just an excuse for me to keep you here. I don't need you to compensate me. But if you really want to compensate me, can you compensate me with yourself? His long eyelashes fluttered, and he actually looked a little innocent. That handsome face was filled with a flirtatious smile that could capture people's hearts. Gong Coco could not help but ask, "Is this how you usually deceive girls?" When Pingxiu did not expect her to be able to remain rational at this time. He smiled faintly. "I've never lied to anyone. If you must doubt me, I only want to lie to you." As he spoke, he lowered his head to kiss her. Gong Coco quickly dodged and then reached out to push him, causing him to fall directly onto the sofa behind him. She took a step forward and grabbed his collar, telling him very domineeringly, "Not everyone will fall for your tricks. Aren't you afraid of retribution for deceiving girls like this?" She stepped on the sofa with one foot and lowered her body, looking at him with a very domineering gaze. She had learned this posture from TV. "Why aren't you saying anything?" Gong Coco revealed a devilish smile. Her cat-like eyes were mesmerizing, causing Wen Pingxiu to be completely stunned. "Feeling guilty? Let me tell you, if you dare to say such strange things to me again, I will make you regret appearing in this world." She let go of his collar and found that the lines from the script were very suitable for this situation. She snorted. "Isn't it just money? I will compensate you for your clothes. From now on, stay away from me." In Wen Pingxiu's eyes, her arrogant smile was inexplicably charming. He suddenly felt that this woman was very interesting. No, very interesting. He took advantage of the fact that Gong Coco was not paying attention and pulled Gong Coco's foot that was stepping on the sofa. Gong Coco was caught off guard and fell to the ground. Wen Pingxiu took the opportunity to hug her waist with both hands and smiled faintly. "You said that you don't want it, but now you are throwing yourself at me? You're really a hypocrite." His dangerous smile shocked Gong Coco. She thought that perhaps this was the true face of this man. Just as she was about to push him away, Jiang Shanka's angry voice was heard. "Let go of her." Gong Coco was shocked. "Oh no." She quickly got up and quickly took 3 steps away from Wen Pingxiu. Jiang Shanka stood at the door with a black aura all over his body, like a demon god. Wen Pingxiu looked at Jiang Shanka and felt a little regretful. He did not expect this little thing to be Jiang Shanka's wife. That would be a little difficult. He straightened his clothes and stood up, returning to his gentle mask. "So it's Director Jiang. Long time no see." Wen Pingxiu, Jiang Shanka tried to hold back a few times, but he could not hold back the anger in his heart. He actually dared to take liberties with his girl? Gong Coco saw that Jiang Shanka's expression was really ugly and was a little scared. He did not look like he was baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. If she had known, she would not have played with him. Great! Now she was caught red-handed. Gong Coco did not know why, but she thought of the washboard in television dramas, poo. That was for men to kneel. She was a princess. Jiang Shanka pulled Gong Coco into his arms and declared his dominance. Then he sneered. "You still like to snatch from me. Since young, have you ever won?" They actually knew each other, and their friendship was not shallow. When Pingxiu said with some regret, "If I had known, I would have come earlier. Such an interesting little fellow is actually taken by an unromantic person like you. What a waste of a heavenly gift." Jiang Shanka raised his eyebrows slightly. "So you still know that she's mine? I advise you to stay away from her. Otherwise, I don't mind letting you relive how I kicked you out of Hadean City." As soon as he finished speaking, their gazes collided and sparks flew everywhere. That damn Jiang Shanka. When they were young, he was always on top of him. Who would have thought that he would be even more of an eyesore when he grew up? Jiang Shanka kept holding Gong Coco's hair and waist. He wanted to erase all the places that Wen Pingxiu had touched. Gong Coco was sandwiched between them and pulled Jiang Shanka's clothes. "I dirted one of his clothes." She did not have money. Jiang Shanka glanced at her. He was really angry and wanted to laugh at the same time. She was so cowardly now. Why didn't she think of the consequences when she angered him? "How much is your clothes?" "Just write the bill directly to the Jiang family. My wife is frightened. Goodbye." He especially emphasized the word wife. When Pingxiu was secretly resentful, but on the surface, he said it. It's okay. Coco is so cute. How can I bear to let her pay? Young master when is so promiscuous. Aren't you afraid of being beaten to death? Thank you for taking care of me. I'm still alive and well now. Gone Coco was a little embarrassed. She felt that if it were not for the occasion, the two of them would have already fought. Chapter 939. Seeing that Jiang Shanka was here, he couldn't do anything. When Pingxiu straightened her clothes and winked at Gong Coco. Goodbye, Miss Coco. Gong Coco snorted cleverly. I don't want to see you. When Pingxiu looked amused and left, Gong Coco glanced at Jiang Shanka's cold face and was scared out of her wits. She was no longer as arrogant as she was on horseback. She didn't know what was wrong with her. She was a princess, okay? How could she be so cowardly? It must be because Jiang Shanka's sullen face looked like her brother's. It must be. Jiang Shanka pinched Gong Coco's waist and wanted to strangle her to death. When he couldn't find her just now, he thought that Gong Coco was deliberately avoiding him. Who knew that she would be taken advantage of by another man? Do you know your mistake? Jiang Shanka deliberately asked with a scary expression. Gong Coco tried to get away with it. She stared at Jiang Shanka with wide eyes and said aggrievedly, Isn't it because you came to find me so late? When Pingxiu said that there are many special maids at the racecourse. Were you hindered by them? Gong Kiki was definitely looking for trouble, but Jiang Shanka had no choice but to explain himself. He suppressed his anger and said, How can there be a woman more capable of causing trouble and occupying my mind more than you? He reached out and pinched Gong Coco's chin. Also, you know that person's name? How do you think I should punish you? Seeing that he was still angry, Gong Coco could only act shamelessly. Who told you to take so long to find me? I'm also very popular. Okay. She wanted to slip away after saying that, but Jiang Shanka grabbed her and pressed her onto the sofa. What are you doing? There are many people outside. This is someone else's changing room. Jiang Shanka deliberately sneered. What am I doing? I want to put a mark on you, lest you become too popular. As he spoke, he ignored Gong Coco's resistance and kissed her neck, looking like he wouldn't stop until he left a kiss mark. Gong Coco thought of the hickeys on her neck. What would others think of her? They might even think that she and Jiang Shanka had done something here. Therefore, she gritted her teeth and pushed Jiang Shanka off the sofa. When Jiang Shanka fell onto the carpet, he didn't forget to pull Gong Coco up, so Gong Coco also fell down and sat on his body. Although Jiang Shanka was there to cushion the pain, this position was too embarrassing. Jiang Shanka's eyes widened. Gong Coco, how dare you push me when you've grown up? Gong Coco thought of the 3 rules after she kicked him off the bed last time. She hurriedly raised her hands in surrender. We're outside now. Can we be intimate again at home? Jiang Shanka narrowed his eyes. No. Little girl, don't press on me. I promise I'll only leave a mark. Gong Coco couldn't let go of him after he said that. Fortunately, she knew how to fall, so she wasn't in such a passive position. You wish. I won't let go. You're almost 30 years old. Can you not be so childish? Jiang Shanka said without hesitation. I'm almost 30 years old. Don't I still like you? Gong Coco glared at him and accidentally loosened her grip. Jiang Shanka took the opportunity to sit up and hug her. His anger dissipated in an instant. When he hugged her intimately, he only felt satisfied. Okay? Just leave a hickey, okay? Jiang Shanka wouldn't tell her that he just wanted to kiss her. She was so soft and fragrant, as addictive as poppy. Gong Coco looked reluctant, but she still turned her head away with red ears, revealing her fair and defenseless neck. Jiang Shanka's atoms apple-bobbed. He didn't know why, but at this moment, he actually had the urge to bite her. He wanted to eat her whole, so that there would be no distinction between flesh and blood. However, he didn't do that. He gently licked the neck of the person in his arms. She trembled, and her body turned pink. Jiang Shanka felt his heart tremble as well. In the small space, their body temperature soared, and they both felt numb all over. Gong Coco glanced at him coquettishly. Are you going to stay or not? Not staying? Before she could finish speaking, Jiang Shanka pressed the back of her head and kissed her fiercely. She was so sweet, pure, clean, knowledgeable, and dazzling that his actions were a little rough, causing Gong Coco to cry out in pain. However, the sound of her voice trembled slightly and tugged at his heartstrings. In the end, Jiang Shanka didn't leave a mark on her neck. Gong Coco was shy, so he just wanted to scare her. He didn't want to make things difficult for her or take advantage of her. When Gong Coco returned, her body was still limp. Jiang Shanka's kissing skills were getting better and better, and his fiery palms seemed to be able to ignite a person's body. Jiang Shanka asked, "How's your body?" Although Gong Coco had said that she was fine, he still confirmed it before eating. Gong Coco nodded shyly. Jiang Shanka couldn't hold it in any longer and immediately took her to bid farewell to Lelo. At this moment, Sun Ying had already returned. Sun Qin apologized to Gong Coco in embarrassment. "I'm sorry, my words today were too biased. Mrs. Jiang, please forgive me." When he said that, he even winked ambiguously. Did it take that long to find someone? Looking at Gong Coco's watery eyes and shy face. Who knew what this beast had done to her just now? Jiang Shanka shamelessly pulled Gong Coco into his arms. "All right, I've received your apology. Let's go back." With that, he took Gong Coco home. Lelo clicked his tongue. "You have the opposite sex, but no humanity," Sun Qin sighed. "I want to get married too." As soon as they got home, Jiang Shanka quickly tore off Gong Coco's clothes. His enthusiasm made Gong Coco respond as if she had been ignited. The air was so dry that it seemed like it was going to burn. Just as the two of them were reluctant to part, Gong Coco's phone rang. Jiang Shanka angrily pressed down on her hand, not letting her pick it up. At this moment, Gong Coco's black hair was spread all over the bed. Her clothes were half torn, and it made people restless. However, when Gong Coco saw that it was a call from her manager, she ignored Jiang Shanka and answered it. Jiang Shanka snorted, but he thought of something. He touched her body very evilly and kissed her neck and other sensitive areas, making Gong Coco use all her strength to control the lust that escaped her mouth. She glared at Jiang Shanka. Jiang Shanka continued without restraint. Then, the other party on the phone heard some suspicious sounds and blushed. The manager didn't know about the relationship between Gong Coco and Jiang Shanka. He only knew that Gong Coco was a newcomer that the higher-ups had specially instructed him to take care of. He immediately said somewhat sternly, "Although you have a background as an artist and a newcomer, you are not allowed to have any scandals, understand?" Chapter 940. Gong Coco was a little embarrassed. Seeing that Jiang Shanka was still teasing her maliciously, she angrily pressed Jiang Shanka under her and grabbed his naughty hand. "Sister Zhou, don't worry. I don't have a messy private life. That was my husband." When Jiang Shanka heard her say the word husband, he felt comfortable all over. However, a cry of surprise came from the other side of the phone. "What? You're married?" Jiang Shanka was a little unhappy and wanted to snatch her phone away to say something. Why couldn't Coco get married? How could a manager interfere with their marriage? Gong Coco hurriedly held him down. Seeing that he wanted to say something, she even covered his mouth with her mouth and winked at him to be quiet. Gong Coco's initiative was especially useful to Jiang Shanka. It was like a hungry lion that had been fed in an instant and was satisfied. He immediately became obedient and didn't try to snatch her phone away. "Sister Zhou, don't worry. My business won't affect my work." Zhou Hui thought about it and felt that Gong Coco had a background after all. Perhaps he was her husband. Thus, she didn't pursue this issue and talk to her about something else. The Mother of the World drama has been negotiated, and it's going to start filming soon. So, I want to talk to you about something. I was going to talk to you in person. I'll talk to you over the phone. Is it convenient for you? Her last sentence was very serious. Yes, it's convenient. My husband just went out. Gong Coco glanced at Jiang Shanka and wanted to get up to answer the phone. But how could Jiang Shanka let her have her way? He hugged her tightly and looked at her with an expression that said, "Call your phone and I won't disturb you." Gong Coco endured it and continued to make the phone call. "Sister Zhou, go ahead." "Okay." The other party started to talk nonstop about things to take note of. However, Jiang Shanka reached out to unbutton Gong Coco and was about to take off her remaining clothes. "You!" Gong Coco took the phone away and said fiercely, "Behave yourself?" Jiang Shanka smiled innocently, but his hands were still firmly taking off Gong Coco's clothes, and he whispered in her ear, "Don't make any strange noises. Others will hear it." With that, he took off his clothes with one hand and kissed Gong Coco with the other. Gong Coco struggled with all her might. Sister Zhou was a strict person. She did not want to make her angry. However, Jiang Shanka's flirting skills were getting better and better. The more she struggled, the hotter her body became. She looked at Jiang Shanka with misty and pitiful eyes. Not only did he not stop, he became even more aggressive. A coquettish voice made Zhou Hui stop talking. She asked suspiciously, "Are you listening?" Yes, yes. I'm listening." Gong Kiki was so embarrassed that she could die. She quickly held Jiang Shanka down, but her clothes were taken off by Jiang Shanka. Under his scorching gaze, she wanted to cover her chest and escape. "Okay, I'll tell you more about Jiang Chuanming." Gong Kiki couldn't wait for the other party to hang up the phone, but the other party didn't understand her intentions. On the other hand, Jiang Shanka looked at her calmly and felt that he should give Zhou Hui a raise. His flirting became more and more intense. Gong Coco could not stop moaning. Her body seemed to have turned from ice to water. Jiang Shanka was still melting her. This was too much. Finally, she moaned. Zhou Hui heard the strange sound and suddenly stopped. She paused and finally said mercifully, "That's all. We'll talk about the rest when you're free." Yes. Gong Coco quickly apologized and agreed. Just as the other party hung up, Jiang Shanka pounced on Gong Coco like a hungry tiger. However, Gong Coco was very angry at this moment. Sister Zhou was obviously angry just now. It was all because of Jiang Shanka, that bastard. Hence, she pushed Jiang Shanka away and stood up with her clothes in her arms. "Since you're so disobedient, you can sleep alone." Jiang Shanka was stunned. Seeing that Gong Coco was really angry, he quickly hugged his wife's waist and coaxed her. "My dear, my wife, my princess. I was wrong. I didn't do it on purpose." His handsome face pretended to be aggrieved. Because their skin was so close, Gong Coco could feel his body's strong reaction. Gong Coco was even angrier. This guy, ever since he knew that she was in good health, he was getting more and more out of control. She snorted, "You didn't do it on purpose? Since you were disobedient, you can hold it in. I'm going to sleep in the guest room." "What?" Without waiting for Jiang Shanka to resist, she packed her things and left, leaving Jiang Shanka alone on the bed. He was so shocked that he turned into a stone statue. What should he do? His wife seemed to be really angry. After Gong Coco went to the guest room, she was a little pleased with herself. Mother said that men can't be spoiled. As long as it's a man, it's a rule. Hence, although she was dissatisfied with the comfort of the guest room, she still stayed. She wanted to teach Jiang Shanka a lesson. She wanted to let him know that this princess had a temper. Jiang Shanka kept walking in circles. As he knocked on the door several times, he was stopped outside the guest room. Jiang Shanka wanted to tear down the door, but if he did, his wife would be even angrier. Although he was almost 30 years old, he had no experience in love. No matter how calm he usually was, he was like a young boy now. The more he thought about it, the more ashamed he felt. He knew that Keek's skin was thin. No wonder she was so angry in front of outsiders. What should he do? Gong Coco was a little dissatisfied as she grabbed the blanket. Jiang Shanka had only knocked on the door 5 times, and he was already not going to knock? Humph! She decided to sleep in the guest room tomorrow. With all kinds of grievances and other complicated emotions, Gong Coco couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. She felt that Jiang Shanka only liked her a little. He would give up if there was a slight setback. If he knocked on the door 2 or 3 more times, she would forgive him. Just as she was thinking, the door suddenly made a slight noise. It was too soft. If it wasn't for the fact that Gong Coco wasn't awake, she wouldn't have heard it. Very quickly, the door opened. Smelling Jiang Shanka's unique scent, Gong Coco's mood instantly changed. However, she didn't wake up and continued to pretend to be asleep. Jiang Shanka secretly closed the door and quietly approached. The process was like a thief, and it was in his own home. It was said that a woman in love was hard to understand. Jiang Shanka was also afraid that Gong Coco would be angry and misunderstand that he only wanted her body and didn't love her. Therefore, he couldn't think of a good idea after thinking for a long time. He could only sneak over in the middle of the night and hug her to sleep so that she could see him when she woke up tomorrow morning. By then, she would definitely be appeased. After all, she wasn't a calculative girl. Even if she wasn't appeased, he would sneak over every day. There was no other way. Jiang Shanka couldn't think of a better idea. Looking at Gong Coco's delicate face, Jiang Shanka sighed. In order not to be impulsive after coming over, he took a long, cold shower in the room. He should be able to control himself later. With that thought, he sneaked onto the bed. Chapter 941. Gong Coco snickered in her heart. Seeing Jiang Shanka, who was usually so steady, being so cautious, she felt very happy. The wild thoughts from before instantly vanished into thin air. However, after Jiang Shanka went to bed, she suddenly asked, "Why is your body so cold?" Jiang Shanka was shocked. "You're awake?" Gong Coco knew martial arts. Although she slept soundly on his bed, in the guest room, she would definitely be alert. Gong Coco turned around and looked at him without blinking. "You went out just now?" "No." Jiang Shanka said the truth with a guilty conscience. "I treated you like that just now and made you angry. So I want to take a long cold shower before coming back. I didn't want to do that to you again and make you even angrier." Gong Coco burst out laughing. In the darkness, her eyes were shining. She didn't expect Jiang Shanka to be so cute. "Do you know what you did wrong?" Gong Coco asked. Jiang Shanka sighed. "I know. Who asked me to be in the hands of a little thing like you? In the future, I will respect you even more. Today, I just can only be considered as a man's bad nature." He found an excuse for himself. Gong Coco didn't say anything. Just as Jiang Shanka was waiting for her to speak, Gong Coco suddenly rolled into his arms and whispered, "I still like it when you hug me to sleep." Jiang Shanka was stunned, but his hands had already subconsciously hugged her. The corner of his mouth unconsciously curled up. Jiang Shanka asked in a deep voice, "Not angry anymore?" Gong Coco nodded. Jiang Shanka still had some lingering fear. He thought for a while and said, "Coco, although I'm much older than you, I don't really understand women's thoughts." He hugged Gong Coco a little tighter. "If I made you unhappy in any way, tell me. I will change." Gong Coco's heart softened as she asked softly, "Accommodating me in everything?" Jiang Shanka nodded and said hoarsely, "Because I love you." After he finished speaking, both of them were stunned. They had been together for so long. Although they liked each other, they had never said the word love. Jiang Shanka said it because he was older and felt it was too awkward to say it, while Gong Coco said it because she was shy. However, when they heard him say it in such a logical manner, their hearts trembled. Jiang Shanka smiled. It seemed that it was not as hard to say as he thought. As for Gong Ku, she thought of her mother. No wonder her mother liked to hear her father say sweet words to her so much. It turned out that those seemingly simple words actually sounded so wonderful. Seeing that Gong Coco had no reaction, Jiang Shanka was a little unhappy. "Little girl, do you love me?" Although he knew the answer in his heart, Jiang Shanka just wanted to hear Gong Coco say it. Gong Coco shyly covered her head with a blanket. "I have to wake up early tomorrow. I'm going to sleep." Jiang Shanka laughed and did not force her. He hugged her and fell asleep in satisfaction. The next day, when Gong Coco appeared on set, many people looked over. In the past, Gong Coco was very beautiful, but now she looked even more glorious. Today, everyone was just meeting to get to know each other. After that, Gong Coco took the script to find the director. Since she had decided to do something, Gong Coco could not help but be perfect. She pointed out the mistakes about the ancient times in the script and integrated what she knew. The scriptwriter's eyes lit up when he heard it. He felt that he could change it according to Gong Coco's words. Anyway, there was still a long time before the start of filming. Jiang Chuanming waved his hand and agreed. Then, he brought everyone to eat. The male lead of this drama did not come. After all, it was not the start of filming. Gong Coco was talking to the director. At this moment, a person suddenly walked towards them with an evil look on his face. Wang Baichuan had been thinking about Gong Coco since the last time he saw her. Now that his headache was better, he came to look for her. Although this time, because of his inexplicable illness, he missed the opportunity to go further with Gong Coco. But as the biggest investor of this film, if Gong Coco wanted to continue filming, she could not offend him. So, he came over with a glass of wine. "Miss Gong, we meet again. When I first saw you, I was shocked and thought that you were the only one who could compete for this role." Sure enough, Gong Coco recognized that this was the person who had caused trouble for her during the audition. She smiled faintly. "What's the matter?" Wang Baichuan saw that she was cold and inviolable. He felt even more tempted. Nothing. I just wanted to treat you to a glass. Who knows, we might have to work together in the future." As he spoke, he handed over the wine that he had prepared. His words were full of temptation. Gong Coco hesitated for a moment before taking the wine and drinking it. The director at the side wanted to stop her, but he could not do so in time. Usually, at such a banquet, everyone would try to persuade each other. There were not many girls who were as straightforward as Gong Coco. Wang Baichuan was delighted. He did not expect Gong Coco to be so innocent. He just had to wait for the medicine to take effect. After Wang Baichuan left, the director, Jiang Chuanming, said in disapproval, "Didn't your manager tell you not to drink wine handed to you by others?" Gong Coco smiled and said, "It's okay. I won't get drunk even after 1,000 glasses." After a while, Jiang Chuanming saw that Gong Coco was fine. Only then did he relax. He had his eyes on Gong Coco. How could he let Wang Baichuan succeed so easily? Wang Baichuan was a little anxious. Gong Coco looked like she did not drink that glass of wine. Could it be that the amount was not enough? He gritted his teeth, added some medicine to the wine, and asked someone else to toast Gong Coco. Gong Coco did not refuse and drank another glass of wine with the added medicine. Jiang Chuanming was originally worried about Gong Coco and kept an eye on her. However, seeing that she did not blush at all after drinking more than 10 glasses of wine, he could not help but click his tongue in wonder. At this moment, Wang Baichuan's expression was very ugly. In the past, when he met women, they would either directly submit to him and take what they needed, or after he drugged them, they would just cry and admit defeat. However, even after he drugged them, Gong Kiki did not seem to be confused at all. He could not understand. After all, it was said that one bag of his medicine could knock out 10 elephants. Gong Coco naturally knew how depressed Wang Baichuan was. Her body had been modified by Uncle Chiu Xingfen. Not to say that she was immune to poison, but this level of medicine had no effect on her. Seeing that Gong Coco was about to leave, Wang Baichuan did not find a chance to make his move. He made up his mind. Anyway, Gong Coco only had one assistant with her. Wait a minute. When Gong Coco left the club, it was already very late. At this moment, her assistant Wu Wintao wanted to help her out, but she rejected him. Wu Wintao was about to speak when a few men suddenly rushed out from the dark. They carried Gong Coco and ran away. The remaining one stayed behind to hold Wu Wintao down and prevent him from calling the police. Gong Coco did not resist. Since the other party was so bold, the guards and the like might have been beaten up. This was good. She could find a hidden place to deal with that guy. Chapter 942. When she was put down, someone pulled off the black bag over her head. Gong Coco then saw that she was in a dark room. This should be Wang Baichuan's private villa. The person who caught her saw that Gong Coco was staring at him and felt a little scared. That's weird. This woman didn't resist or scream the whole way. The other person was also uncomfortable with Gong Coco's gaze. He said, "Who cares? Maybe she's an idiot?" After they finished speaking, they quickly walked out. Not long after, Wang Baichuan walked in with a smile. Seeing that Gong Coco was looking at him, he said proudly, "Beauty, you didn't expect it to be me, did you?" Gong Coco pointed to a small hole in the wall opposite and said, "What do you mean by this?" A look of surprise flashed across Wang Baichuan's eyes. He didn't expect Gong Coco to find such a small pinhole camera. As long as he wanted to sleep with a woman, he would take a video for her. Firstly, it was to prevent her from doing anything that would harm him in the future. Secondly, if he met someone who refused to submit to him, he could use the video to threaten them and do it a few more times until he got sick of it. He smiled lewdly and said, "Looks like the little beauty still doesn't understand the current situation. You're still thinking about other things. If you have the energy, why don't you serve me? Don't worry, I'll make you famous." With that said, he pounced on Gong Coco. However, Gong Coco stopped him with the tip of her foot. She smiled innocently. "Do you know what happened to the last person who did what you did?" Wang Baichuan didn't expect Gong Coco to be so strong that she could stop him with just one foot. He was shocked. Gong Coco continued, "I heard that his lower body was crippled, and he's in prison now. He's being used by other men. Do you want to try it too?" Wang Baichuan trembled. He actually saw evil in Gong Coco's pure smile. He took a step back and suddenly clapped his hands. Just then, a few men came in from outside, each of them strong and powerful. "Little girl, I didn't expect you to have some skills, but it's useless. Let me tell you, if you don't accept the toast, then I can only invite you to drink the forfeit." Gong Coco sat at the end of the bed and asked with a smile, "Why did you call so many people over?" Seeing that she could still smile, Wang Baichuan said darkly, "Of course I'm going to control you and stop you from struggling. Don't worry, if you're obedient, I'll let you go after I'm satisfied. But if you're not obedient," he snorted, "then when I'm done, you'll have to serve them." The 5 men who came and heard this and looked at Gong Coco's graceful figure and exquisite facial features. They couldn't help but gulp. Obviously, this wasn't the first time they had done this. Gong Coco chuckled. "That sounds interesting. By the way, do you still have the medicine you gave me before? I want to use it to add to the fun." Seeing that Gong Coco was terrified, Wang Baichuan hurriedly took out the medicine from a drawer and poured it into a glass of red wine. Gong Coco said softly, "The amount is too little. Pour more." Wang Baichuan excitedly poured a little more into the glass as a bodyguard beside him said, "Boss, it's fine. Just a little bit of this medicine can turn the saintess into ass. If you pour so much, she won't be able to stop later." Wang Baichuan became even more excited when he heard this. "Don't I still have you guys? I'll definitely be able to feed this little." As he said this, the men in the room burst into laughter. Gong Coco laughed at them for not knowing that they were about to die. Then, she saw Wang Baichuan walking towards her with the glass in his hand. Suddenly, a scream was heard from the dark room. It turned out that Wang Baichuan's wrist had been broken by Gong Coco, but that glass of wine had fallen into Gong Coco's hands unharmed. "Ah, it hurts. Damn it. What are you guys still standing there for? Capture her for me." Amidst Wang Baichuan's painful gasps, Gong Coco was like a dancer, easily kicking the 5 men to the ground. Even after doing all this, not a single drop of the wine in her hand spilled out. This showed how powerful she was. Everyone was afraid. They thought that she was a little white rabbit, but they didn't expect her to be a big bad wolf. Seeing Gong Coco walking towards him step by step, Wang Baichuan was shocked. He quickly pulled out his gun with his other hand, but in the next second, the gun fell into Gong Coco's hands, and the black muzzle was pointed at him. Although it's my first time playing with a gun, it looks very simple. Gong Coco was still smiling innocently, but the red wine in her hand was as viscous as blood. At this moment, the person on the other side of the camera realized that something was wrong and brought the entire villa in. Gong Coco pointed the gun at Wang Baichuan and said indifferently, Whoever comes closer, I'll shoot him first. Those people really didn't dare to come closer. At this moment, Wang Baichuan was so scared that his face was pale. He sat on the bed, but his body was weak and sweating profusely. Madam, Ancestor, don't be rash. I'll give you whatever you want. I have money. I have a lot of money. Gong Coco blinked. That clean and pure aura had a trace of evil. I don't want money. She handed the wine glass in her hand to Wang Baichuan. Hey, you forced me to drink a lot of wine at the table tonight. I'll let you drink this glass. You won't refuse, right? Wang Baichuan was shocked. He looked at Gong Coco in fear. I'll pay. I'll really pay. I know I'm wrong, Ancestor. Ancestor, please let me go. Seeing that Wang Baichuan was disobedient, Gong Coco pinched his chin and forced him to drink. In the process, the person behind wanted to run over to save their master, but Gong Coco shot him with the back of her hand. Then, the wine glass fell to the ground. Wang Baichuan painfully covered his neck and fell on the bed. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect Gong Coco to really shoot him. Gong Coco smiled and glanced at everyone. Suddenly, she asked, "How many girls did you film with that camera in this room?" A bespectacled man broke through the door and stammered. "2, more than 20. The real number was definitely more than that, but it didn't matter." Gong Coco counted. Not bad. Just about 20. She smiled and said to the people at the door, "All of you, come in and close the door." When they heard this, they looked at each other and walked in. Gong Coco pointed at Wang Baichuan, who was getting more and more uncomfortable on the bed. "He must need you now. How about this? The few of you, get Wang Baichuan in a good position and kneel down. The rest of you line up and get on him one by one." Everyone was shocked. Wang Baichuan, who still had a trace of rationality, revealed a terrifying expression. "Gong Coco, how dare you?" "I dare." Gong Coco played with the gun in her hand nimbly and looked down at the man on the bed. "Don't you like to force yourself on me? I'll satisfy you tonight." Seeing that they didn't move, Gong Coco pointed at the 5 men who came in first and said, "Go, get in a good position for your boss." Chapter 944. Jiang Shanka suddenly reached out and knocked her on the head as he said fiercely, "You're wrong. Wrong, think again." Gong Coco covered her forehead with both hands. She could no longer hold back the grievance in her heart. Under the streetlight, bean-sized teardrops fell one by one. That aggrieved gaze made Jiang Shanka's angry expression freeze. Without waiting for him to say anything, Gong Coco pushed him angrily. "I didn't do anything wrong. He was the one who bullied me. I just wanted to tease him. I didn't do anything wrong." Her eyes were covered with tears. She pouted so hard that an oil bottle could be hung from her mouth. She said angrily, "I knew you would hate me. You like it when I'm obedient. You like it when I'm obedient and innocent. You must think that I'm a bad person now. Are you going to break up with me by being so fierce?" The more she spoke, the more aggrieved she felt. As she spoke, she used her finger to poke Jiang Shanka's chest. "I'm telling you, if you don't want me, I'll—" Before she could finish speaking, Jiang Shanka held her in his arms. In order to stop her from saying more heart-wrenching things, he hurriedly covered her mouth with his. Gong Coco wouldn't allow Jiang Shanka to kiss her at this moment. However, in a situation where she didn't use her inner energy, she was just an ordinary woman. Seeing that she was resisting, Jiang Shanka pressed her against the car and kissed her wantonly. Gong Coco's strength to resist gradually weakened. She allowed Jiang Shanka to take what he wanted from her mouth. However, her tears kept falling, making Jiang Shanka's heart ache. He frowned and wanted to laugh at the same time. Seeing Gong Coco looking at him pitifully as she cried, he finally sighed dotingly and said in a low voice, "What a silly girl." Gong Coco felt bad when she heard that. She glared at him, looking like she was going to bite him to death. Jiang Shanka hurriedly continued, "How would I dare not like you?" Gong Coco's face turned red with anger. Jiang Shanka pressed his forehead against hers. If I don't like you, I won't be able to take it if you torture me like this. Although he was begging for mercy, the affection in his words was so lingering that it made the bodyguards, who were watching from afar, blush and their hearts beat faster. The man and woman hugging each other were too compatible. Looking at them from afar, they seemed to be emitting pink bubbles. Gong Coco blushed inexplicably. She calmed down a little. She could tell that Jiang Shanka didn't seem to hate her, but she was still unwilling to accept it. She pouted and said fiercely, I want it. If you make me unhappy, I will punish you in the same way. Jiang Shanka's eyes were filled with love. He licked Gong Coco's lips very gently and said in an extremely ambiguous manner, Fine, you can punish me as much as you want. You can strip me naked and do whatever you want, but I only want you to punish me. Gong Coco's face instantly turned red. She was clearly talking to him seriously. How could he suddenly tease her? Who wants to punish you like that? She said sternly. Besides, don't you hate me? I wouldn't dare, my little princess. You were clearly fierce to me just now. Jiang Shanka said in annoyance. I'm angry that you actually risked your life alone again. I'm angry that you had to deal with such people personally. When will you learn to rely on your man? Speaking of this, his expression turned severe. All right, you weren't watching from the side just now, were you? Did you see those people's bodies? Jiang Shanka suddenly raised his voice. That terrifying gaze immediately suppressed Gong Coco's aura. It felt like the east wind was suppressing the west wind, and the west wind was suppressing the east wind. It was indescribably dramatic. Gong Coco lowered her head and argued, No, I didn't look. Really? Jiang Shanka was doubtful. You didn't even take a look? Gong Coco nodded vigorously. I'm afraid of dirtying my eyes. Jiang Shanka then smiled in satisfaction. He pressed down on Gong Coco and kissed her affectionately. Gong Coco saw the bodyguards looking over suspiciously. Thinking of how Jiang Shanka had pressed her against the car and kissed her crazily, Gong Coco's body went weak. However, she gritted her teeth and glared at Jiang Shanka. That's enough. Restrain yourself. Jiang Shanka only let her off because he thought that she would be embarrassed. Silly girl, you're too impulsive. We're not in ancient times anymore. There are many ways to vent your anger. If you do this, you'll probably drag yourself into it. After all, Wang Baichuan was still quite influential. After being humiliated tonight, he probably wouldn't let Gong Coco off even if he died. Gong Coco then thought in annoyance. Did she cause trouble for Jiang Shanka again? She said, I have a recording of him being that. He won't dare to act rashly. Jiang Shanka saw that she still knew to keep a recording and looked at her as if she was a teachable child. However, this wasn't enough. If a person wanted to take revenge on another person, there were many ways to do so. All right, don't worry about this. If he dares to touch you, your husband will naturally teach him a lesson. But next time, you have to remember to eliminate the source of trouble, especially when dealing with people like this. Do you understand? Gong Coco blinked. Don't you think I'm very bad? Jiang Shanka rubbed her head vigorously. Bad? I think you're too kind. If it were him, Wang Baichuan would be dreaming if he wanted to escape unscathed. However, it wasn't too late now. Let's go home. I'll take care of the rest. But Gong Coco didn't expect Jiang Shanka to be so tolerant of her. She was touched and a little embarrassed. No buts. Jiang Shanka stuffed her into the car and told her in a low voice, You just have to remember that in my heart, you're the most important. Nothing can compare to you. I love you. I love everything about you. I should be happy that you have such a bad idea, so that the bad guys won't bully you. Gong Coco lowered her head in embarrassment. She remembered that when she was away, Qi Xingfeng would help her deal with all the bad things she did. In the palace, her brother would protect her with all his strength. It was always her who bullied others. Of course, she only bullied the bad guys. Seeing Jiang Shanka get into the car, Gong Coco was a little reserved. You really don't mind? She asked again. Jiang Shanka sighed, and suddenly said something that seemed to have nothing to do with him. Tell me, how can I make you understand that you're married? Gong Coco looked at him with a puzzled expression. Jiang Shanka reached out and tucked her hair behind her ear. His low voice was as mellow as a cello. At the very least, you should learn to rely on me, just like how you rely on your brother. However, your brother will still discipline you, but I won't. I love you. I love everything about you. Even your little evil thoughts deeply fascinate me. Gong Coco turned her head away. You! Stop it. Her heart beat faster. She couldn't stand Jiang Shanka's words of love. Jiang Shanka leaned over and said seriously, I'm willing to do anything for you. Please don't doubt me anymore, okay? Chapter 945. Gong Coco's eyes shone brightly. Her mood was as if she had seen the sun after the clouds parted. She had once asked her mother what kind of man she should marry in the future. Her mother looked at her father and secretly told her to find someone who loved her blindly and trusted her. She didn't understand at that time. Wouldn't love lead to trust? But now she knew that for a man, love and trust could be separated. Fortunately, she met a man who loved her blindly and accepted everything about her. She suddenly didn't want to go back. Brother, sister is useless. Her heart was stolen by a man. The next day, Wang Baichuan woke up. As he covered his wound and cursed at the heavens and earth, wanting to take revenge on Gong Coco, the police suddenly rushed into his house and said that someone had provided evidence of him selling drugs. They wanted to arrest him. After Wang Baichuan went to prison, the Wang family's business declined rapidly and the stock price plummeted. Jiang Shanka took the opportunity to buy the shares and turn the tide. He became the man with the most authority in the Wang family's business. The Wang family was forced into a corner by him, and there was no way to get Wang Baichuan out. As a result, the Wang family completely declined. Gong Coco was slightly speechless when she heard the news. Jiang Shanka was indeed decisive. This was similar to her brother. At the same time, Gong Keek's new drama had also started filming. It started raining, and autumn had arrived. With the broadcast of Ming Zhao's legend, Gong Coco's dark history seemed to have become a thing of the past. Her anti-fans gradually disappeared, and her fans increased. Although this amount of fans was nothing in the eyes of those big stars, Gong Coco was very satisfied. She looked and saw that she had 100,000 fans. In addition, there were fans who came to the set to visit the day before yesterday. Gong Coco's heart softened. She felt that the feeling of being inexplicably liked by people was really good. Jiang Shanka saw that Gong Coco was looking at her fans again. Although she didn't show it on her face, she couldn't suppress the pride in her heart. Jiang Shanka even had the urge to buy fans for her. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid that Gong Coco would be unhappy if she found out, he would have done so. All right, stop looking. Mom is coming. Gong Coco panicked. Didn't you say in a few days? Why so sudden? Jiang Shanka's mother should have come a long time ago, but her headache came back later, so she didn't come until now. Jiang Shanka snickered. He probably wants to give you a surprise. This is simply too frightening. Gong Kiki stood up in a panic. Am I very ugly right now? I stayed up all night to read the script. I must be exhausted now. Jiang Shanka smiled and held her hand as they walked downstairs. Don't worry. Even an ugly daughter-in-law has to meet her in-laws. Besides, my Kiki is so pretty and cute. Gong Coco couldn't dissuade him. After a while, he brought her downstairs. At this time, the housekeeper opened the door, and a thin but beautiful woman appeared at the door. When she saw Jiang Shanka and Gong Coco, her eyes lit up. Look at how compatible you two are. Jiang Hanjing had not seen her son and daughter-in-law for a long time, so she was very excited. She held Gong Coco's hand and looked at her left and right. She praised her from the bottom of her heart. Kiki? Are you Kiki? Why do I feel like you've become younger and prettier? Gong Coco looked at Jiang Shanka awkwardly. Jiang Hanjing touched her hand and said, and your skin is getting softer and softer. Could this be the nourishment of love? When she left, her son and daughter-in-law were still getting along with each other indifferently. In just a few months, they actually appeared hand in hand. Jiang Shanka quickly helped Gong Coco out of her predicament. "Mom, don't worry. We have a good relationship. Who knows, you might be able to have a grandson soon." Gong Coco looked at Jiang Shanka shyly. As Gong Coco's new drama had to be filmed in a hurry, Gong Coco was busy most of the time. Jiang Shanka did not want to tire her out. Although they had agreed to consummate their marriage, it had been delayed. So, she was still a virgin. But Jiang Hanjing's eyes lit up when she heard that. "A grandson is good. I'll like it regardless of whether it's a boy or a girl." After chatting for a while, they started to eat. As she didn't have much contact with Gong Coco, Jiang Hanjing didn't recognize that she wasn't the real person. At the dining table, Jiang Shanka suddenly asked curiously, "Mom, didn't you have a headache? Why did you suddenly come back?" Because Jiang Hanjing's headache needed to be nursed back to health. She had been abroad all this time. Actually, Jiang Shanka was a little confused about her return this time. Jiang Hanjing glanced at Gong Coco and thought about it. In the end, she didn't lie to him. "Well, your dad." Jiang Shanka's face suddenly darkened. "My dad died a long time ago." Seeing that, Jiang Hanjing didn't say anything else. Gong Coco bit her chopsticks curiously. Jiang Shanka rarely talked about his family matters with her, so she was a little curious when she suddenly heard that. Jiang Hanjing saw Gong Coco's confused face and knew that she didn't know about these things. "So," she said, "you're also married and will have your own children soon. I've already forgiven him. So why can't you forgive him?" Jiang Shanka didn't get angry because he cared about Gong Coco, but everyone could see the anger in his eyes. This kind of thing is unforgivable. If it weren't for him, Xiaoan wouldn't have died. He's wronged too many people. I'll never forgive him in this lifetime. Jiang Hanjing felt that Gong Coco had the right to know about these things, so she said, "When I found out that he was with my sister behind my back, I was also very angry." But Xiaoan's incident was just an accident. Now that he's about to die, I'm only here to see him one last time, she paused. Seeing that Jiang Shanka didn't have any intention to continue, she sighed. He's about to die. If you really don't want to see him, I'll go by myself. Jiang Shanka's expression became even more frightening. You want to go alone to see that woman and her child? His mother had a weak personality and might be bullied by that mother and child. How could he let her go alone? Jiang Hanjing nodded. Her attitude was firm. After all, we're husband and wife. I want to see him. It wasn't because of love or anything. She was just doing her last bit of kindness. Seeing her like this, what else could Jiang Shanka say? He endured and endured. After all, he couldn't lock his own mother up. Fine, I'll go with you then. Gong Coco watched from the side with wide eyes. Jiang Hanjing's originally gloomy mood suddenly felt much better when she saw her clear eyes. Kiki, do you want to go with me? No. Jiang Shanka firmly objected. Kiki has nothing to do with that person. He doesn't deserve you to see him. Gong Coco was a little unwilling. She pouted but didn't say anything. Jiang Hanjing saw this and smiled gently. There are no secrets between husband and wife. You love her, so you should let her face it with you. Jiang Shanka was stunned. Only then did he look at Gong Coco. Seeing her eager expression and bright eyes looking at him, his cold heart suddenly softened. Well, there was nothing that he couldn't let her know. Chapter 946. Once the decision was made, Jiang Shanka wanted to get it over with as soon as possible. The next day, while Gong Coco was out of the picture, he took his wife and mother to visit them. On the way, the couple did not ride in the same car as Jiang Shanka. Jiang Hanjing also guessed that Jiang Shanka had something to say, so she did not disturb him. Jiang Shanka thought for a whole night before he came up with the words. He held Gong Coco's hand and said, "Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous." "I'm not nervous." Gong Coco looked at Jiang Shanka's tense expression and asked with a smile, "Hurry up and tell me the truth. What's wrong with your father?" Jiang Shanka's eyes dimmed slightly. "That's not my father. My father died a long time ago." Gong Coco saw his sad expression and asked in a low voice, "What did he do?" Jiang Shanka sneered. "He did too many things. So much so that he felt ashamed to say it out loud." Gong Coco sat beside him and held his hand tightly. "It's okay. You have me." Jiang Shanka smiled gently. Gong Coco's warmth passed through his fingertips and made him feel much better. He said softly, "Jiang Shanka was born in Jiangnan. Because my grandparents took good care of her, she was very innocent. When she was in her 20s, she fell in love with a man at first sight and quickly married him. That man was also a well-known figure in Haitian City. My grandparents were very relieved when they passed away because he was very good to my mother. This memory was still very beautiful. But then, Jiang Shanka's expression changed. After giving birth to me, my mother's health suddenly deteriorated. In order to fulfill her wish of having a daughter, our family adopted a girl. Everything was normal at first, but when I was 7 years old, my mother's so-called sister came, and everything changed." Jiang Shanka sneered. "That woman's name is Jiang Xin. She's the daughter of my grandfather's old friend. In the Jiang family, she has always been the second daughter of the Jiang family. When she got married, my grandfather even prepared a generous dowry for her. However, after my grandfather and grandmother passed away, her husband died as well. Her in-laws were very powerful. My mother's heart softened, and she brought her and her son to her home. Gong Coco had a strange expression on her face. And then she had an affair with your father?" Jiang Shanka sneered. "It's too simple. Jiang Xin and that man had known each other for a long time, but that man's family looked down on Jiang Xin because she was an orphan. That's why that man married my mother. But at that time, my mother and I didn't expect that Jiang Xin's son was that man's biological son. He's 2 years older than me. This matter could be said to be the greatest humiliation of his life." Thinking back to the time when he was very sympathetic to this brother of his who was living in his house and tolerated him in every way, the other party must have laughed at him in his heart for being stupid. Gong Coco was stunned. "Then your father, he married your mother on purpose? No matter how I look at it, it was premeditated long ago." Not only that, Jiang Shanka's expression was gloomy and cold, his whole body emitting a cold aura that couldn't be dispersed. "Not long after my mother gave birth to me, my maternal grandparents passed away. Coincidentally, my mother also fell ill and couldn't have children anymore. I'm afraid all of this was done by that man." He clenched his fists so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. Gong Coco couldn't help but hug him in her arms to comfort him. "It's okay, it's all in the past. Anyway, he's going to die soon, isn't he?" Jiang Shanka closed his eyes. "I'm just a little angry. Why did my mother want to see him for the last time? People like him deserve to die." Gong Coco understood his sadness. The originally happy family was all an illusion. His original cousin had become his biological brother. A good husband and father had turned into a scheming devil. This kind of change was unacceptable. "So you took your mother's surname?" Gong Coco suddenly asked. "What's that man's surname?" At this moment, the chauffeur's voice came from the phone. "Young master, we've arrived." Gong Coco saw Jiang Shanka's expression become terrifying. If it wasn't to protect his mother, he wouldn't have come to such a place, right? Gong Coco saw that Jiang Shanka seemed to be restraining himself. She couldn't help but hold his hand and lead him out of the car. Jiang Hanjing had already gotten out of the car. The female owner of the mansion was talking to her. Jiang Hanjing said coldly, "I'm just here to see him for the last time. I'll leave after seeing him." Jiang Xion's eyes flashed when she heard that, but she still said with a smile, "All right, let's go in then." At this moment, a man strode in front of Jiang Shanka, but his eyes were fixed on Gong Coco. "Little cutie, we meet again." Gong Coco widened her eyes. In the next second, Jiang Shanka stood in front of her to protect her. "Wen Pingxiu, if you don't want me to do anything in your Wen family, you'd better behave yourself." Gong Coco was stunned. So Wen Pingxiu was Jiang Shanka's brother. No wonder they acted like enemies when they met. So this was the reason. When Ping Xiu raised his eyebrows, "My family doesn't welcome you." Jiang Shanka sneered. "If when Jipping didn't invite my mother, do you think I'd want to step into such a filthy place?" When Ping Xiu's eyes flashed with anger, "Then let's invite young Master Jiang in to take a look. This place isn't filthy at all." Jiang Shanka pulled Gong Coco inside. Gong Coco turned around and saw Wen Pingxiu smiling at her. Initially, she didn't have much ill feelings towards Wen Pingxiu. However, now that she knew who he was, Gong Coco snorted and even made a face. Meanwhile, Jiang Hanjing had already met Wen Jipping. Wen Jipping's eyes lit up when he saw Jiang Hanjing. He was only 50 years old, but his hair was white and he looked old. It was obvious that he hadn't had a good time all these years. Jiang Hanjing sat beside him, looking like his daughter. She was very calm. Jiang Xian originally thought that Jiang Hanjing would be filled with resentment, but she was so quiet that it was as if she was looking at a stranger. Wen Jipping's eyes flashed with regret. If he hadn't been blind and insisted on being with Jiang Xian, he wouldn't have ended up like this in his prime. Thinking of this, a trace of hatred flashed in his eyes, but he quickly concealed it. Jiang Hanjing said softly, "You insisted that I come to see you for the last time. All right, I'm here. What do you want to say?" Perhaps she had loved and hated when she was young, but her son was already so old. She had already gotten over it. Especially in the past few years, she often went out to relax. She was no longer the timid Jiang Hanjing of the past. When Jipping wanted to say something, but he coughed a few times first. Jiang Xian was serving him closely, looking very considerate. "Jipping, take your time. Don't rush." When Jipping glanced at Jiang Xian, but a trace of disgust flashed in his eyes. Then, he looked at Jiang Hanjing and asked in a hoarse voice, "Why isn't little Ke here?" Jiang Shanka heard Wen Jipping's voice and pushed the door open. At that moment, the disgust in his eyes was undisguised. "Tell me, you're about to die. Why do you still want to see my mother? Haven't you harmed her enough?" Chapter 947. When he saw Jiang Shanka, Wen Jipping coughed violently. He stared at Jiang Shanka with shining eyes, as if he was his only hope. Can you let me speak to little Ku alone?" Jiang Shanka wanted to reject him, but he didn't expect Jiang Xian to reject him first. "Hubby, you can't leave your body. Let me stay and take care of you." Jiang Shanka looked away. He didn't want to see Jiang Xian's gentle and demure look. Gong Coco, who was standing at the side, suddenly noticed that when Jiang Xian spoke, Wen Jipping's hand unconsciously tightened as if he was afraid of something. She revealed a thoughtful expression, but she didn't expose him on the spot. Wen Jipping asked a few more times, but he was rejected by Jiang Shanka. However, Jiang Shanka hated this person and didn't want to listen to him. After Jiang Hanjing said a few more words, he wanted to take her away. "Jing Jing." When Wen Jipping saw that Jiang Hanjing was about to leave, he suddenly called her by her nickname. Jiang Shanka immediately pulled Jiang Hanjing behind him. He said angrily, "You don't have the right to call me that." After that, he coldly glanced at everyone in the room and immediately left with Jiang Hanjing and Gong Coco. Before they left, Gong Coco turned around and saw the despair in Wen Jipping's eyes. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but only a few broken sounds came out. Jiang Shanka had already left. After they left, Jiang Hanjing said thoughtfully in the car, "I feel like he has something to say. If Jiang Hanjing could see it, how could Jiang Shanka not see it?" Jiang Shanka said in a low voice, "No matter what he wants to say, we don't need to know." Jiang Hanjing didn't say anything. Gong Coco realized that Jiang Shanka really hated Wen Jipping. The more he hated Wen Jipping, the more it proved that he had once looked forward to it. Gong Coco guessed that Jiang Shanka must have admired Wen Jipping a lot when he was young. Gong Kiki was right. When Jiang Shanka was young, he thought that he was the happiest person in the world. He had a gentle mother and an elegant and powerful father. That was why he felt so much pain when everything was shattered. That was why he didn't want to mention Wen Jipping at all. After returning home, Jiang Shanka went to handle the company's affairs. The Jiang family's current achievements was all because of Jiang Shanka. At that time, he and Jiang Hanjing could be said to have left with nothing. If it weren't for the family's ancestral property, they might have been reduced to the streets and had to start their own business. Jiang Hanjing could forgive all of this, but he definitely couldn't, not even if he had to die. Gong Coco saw that Jiang Shanka was full of anger. She had never seen Jiang Shanka so angry before. She quietly walked over and hugged Jiang Shanka's neck from behind. Jiang Shanka's body stiffened. He only relaxed when he felt that it was Gong Coco. "Are you still angry?" Gong Coco's soft voice was like heavenly music that could calm people's hearts. Jiang Shanka gradually calmed down. He looked at the sky outside and saw that it was already dark. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" His voice softened. "Don't wait for me. I still have something to do. I'll be fine after I'm done." Gong Coco kissed him on the cheek and said coquettishly, "I can't sleep without you hugging me." She mumbled, "It's almost 1 o'clock. Why aren't you coming to accompany me? I'm going to be angry. Can't you deal with these things tomorrow?" It wasn't that he couldn't. Jiang Shanka just wanted to keep himself busy. He sighed and turned his head to kiss Gong Coco gently. "All right, I really don't know what to do with you. Go to bed and wait for me. I'll come after I wash up." Gong Coco nodded. She was only relieved when she saw Jiang Shanka go to the bathroom. Jiang Shanka was unwilling. As his wife, how could she help him? In the middle of the night, Gong Coco secretly climbed the wall. She felt that this matter couldn't be so vague. Wen Jipping looked like a lamp that had run out of oil. Perhaps it would happen in the next 2 days. Some secrets couldn't be brought to the grave. The Wen family security was quite tight. Fortunately, Gong Coco had already figured out some of the modern security devices. She quietly sneaked into the Wen family's house and went straight to Wen Jipping's room. Strangely, it was already 3 o'clock, but the light in his room was still on. Jiang Xian's voice came from inside. "Old Wen, I don't want to criticize you. Why can't you differentiate between good and bad? I've been so good to you and took care of you so considerately. Why don't you care about our past relationship at all?" Wen Jipping groaned in pain. He couldn't speak a complete word for a long time. Jiang Xian smiled gently. "Are you feeling terrible? If you're feeling terrible, then go and die. Why aren't you dead yet? Jiang Hanjing won't come again. What's the point of holding on to your last breath?" Wen Jipping's violent coughs came from inside, followed by the sound of things being knocked over. Gong Coco looked inside curiously. She saw that Jiang Xian was stabbing Wen Jipping with needles. Gong Coco's pupil shrank. In Dayu State's palace, especially in Zhao Prison, there were many ways to kill people without spilling blood. Most of them were tools for torturing people. Wen Jipping was clearly on his last breath. Why was Jiang Xian still torturing him? Those needles were as thin as hair. There was no blood when they pierced the body, but it was very painful. Wen Jipping's eyes were white, and he looked like he was about to die. Although Gong Coco didn't have a good impression of Wen Jipping, she hated Jiang Xian for torturing a patient like this. Therefore, the pearl in her hand shot out and hit Jiang Xian's acupuncture point. She fell to the ground weakly with a ferocious expression. She had made a lot of preparations along the way. Not only did she knock out the people in the surveillance room and the patrolling guards, she even covered the cameras to ensure that they wouldn't know who she was. Her sudden appearance gave Wen Jipping a fright. When he realized who Gong Coco was, he revealed a look of disbelief. It was as if he was saying, "Did Jiang Shanka send you here?" Gong Coco frowned and carefully removed the needles from his body. In order to let him speak more smoothly, she even channeled a lot of inner energy into his body. This made Wen Jipping's eyes brighten. He looked at Gong Coco as if he was looking at a treasure. "Aren't you the head of the Wen family? Why are you being tortured by your wife?" Gong Coco asked curiously. Hearing this, Wen Jipping coldly looked at Jiang Xian on the ground. "You're so powerful. Can you help me kill this woman?" Gong Coco didn't expect Wen Jipping to ask her to kill someone. She shook her head. She remembered that this was a society ruled by law. Moreover, Jiang Shanka told her last time that there were many ways to kill someone without spilling blood. Moreover, Jiang Xian didn't offend her, so why would she do this? When Jipping's eyes dimmed, and then he said, "It's little Ke." Gong Coco shook her head and said truthfully, "I wanted to come. I felt that you seemed to have something to say. I'm Jiang Shanka's wife. He has a deep hatred for you, but I was afraid that you had something important to say, so I came." Chapter 949. Gong Coco nodded and saw when Jipping closed his eyes. She was stunned. She reached out and found that when Jipping was already dead, it turned out that he had been holding on so that he could live to finish these words, change his will, apologize, and get someone to avenge him. He didn't have the chance before, but after Gong Coco came, he could finally be at ease. His body had long been exhausted. It was no wonder that he had aged so much in a year after being tortured like that every day. Gong Coco looked at the photo at the side. It was when Jipping's appearance before he fell ill. He was completely different from the old man in front of her. Gong Coco got up and wanted to hand all of this to Jiang Shanka. However, as soon as she got up, she saw Wen Pingqiu behind her. Gong Coco immediately became alert. It was all her fault for being so focused that she didn't notice Wen Pingqiu's arrival. Tears fell from Wen Pingqiu's face. He looked at Gong Coco in disbelief. All of this is actually like this? My mother, she actually did such a terrible thing to my father. Gong Coco was stunned. She didn't expect Wen Pingqiu to have such a reaction. Before she could say anything, Wen Pingqiu covered his face and cried softly. His heartbroken look made Gong Coco hesitate. How should she put it? Since when Jipping had handed the company to Wen Pingqiu, it meant that when Jipping knew that all of this had nothing to do with Wen Pingqiu. However, he was still implicated. After all, other than the company and this mansion, he didn't leave anything else to Wen Pingqiu. Gong Coco walked over and saw Wen Pingqiu crying at the door. She couldn't help but ask, "Then what do you want to do?" Wen Pingqiu heard this and let go of his hand. His handsome face was full of tears, and he looked really sad. His bloodshot eyes slowly looked at Jiang Xian and then at Wen Jipping. Finally, he gritted his teeth. "I will send my mother to court. Even if I don't want to, I have to do this." After he said that, he smiled bitterly. "I actually lost both my parents in one night. Why did they do this to me?" When Gong Coco heard this, her vigilant body gradually relaxed. Her mother and father had also left, so she understood this pain very well. She still had a chance to see them, but Wen Pingqiu didn't have a chance. At this moment, she was suddenly in Wen Pingqiu's arms. Her body stiffened, and she wanted to push him away, but Wen Pingqiu cried and said, "Can you let me lean on you? I'm sorry, I have no one else I can rely on. Just this once." Gong Keek's hand paused, and Wen Pingqiu hugged her tightly. "Why do you think she's so evil? Isn't it just money? Just give the Jiang family shares to the Wen family. Although the Wen family is not as powerful as before, we can still live a good life. Why did she do this? Doesn't she miss me at all? Didn't she know that all I wanted was a happy family? Why did she have to ruin everything?" Why is that it leaving me alone in this world? Gong Coco couldn't answer Wen Pingqiu's question. She was a little soft-hearted. After her parents left, she still had her brother. Although she hated Wen Pingqiu, he was indeed very pitiful at this moment because he had no family left. Therefore, she said, "Don't be sad. Yes, people are greedy. Just don't be like your mother." Wen Pingqiu continued to sob, his voice heartbroken. "You're right. I can't be like my mother. She's too stupid." Gong Coco was stunned, but the needle in Wen Pingqiu's hand had already been inserted into Gong Coco's shoulder. Gong Coco pushed Wen Pingqiu away reflexively, only to see Wen Pingqiu crying and smiling strangely. "Don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being too kind. Do you think I'm very pitiful? My cute Kiki, I really can't bear to kill you." Gong Coco pulled out the needle on her back, but there were double images in front of her. It was impossible. Even if the drug could make 10 elephants faint, it couldn't make her faint. When Pingqiu approached step by step, Gong Coco wanted to reach out to stop him, but she couldn't. Her phone was snatched away by Wen Pingqiu. He wiped his tears and glanced at Wen Jipping. I'm so touched. He still remembers me even when he's dying. But what he doesn't know is that I asked my mother to do all of this. Back then, how did Jiang Shanka chase me out of this city? I want to return what I've suffered tenfold. As he spoke, he looked at Gong Coco regretfully. Originally, I liked you very much and wanted to marry you after defeating Jiang Shanka. But who asked you to be so curious? It must be very uncomfortable, right? I know you're different from ordinary people. Last time, Wang Baichuan's strong sexual desire didn't make you faint. This time, I'm considerate and increased the dosage. Gong Coco kept retreating. The images in front of her became heavier and heavier. Wen Pingqiu's voice seemed to come from the horizon. She was still too young. She actually fell for Wen Pingqiu's trick. Wen Jipping took out a fruit knife and said with a smile, "Do you want to know the ending after you die? That is, you kill your father, and your mother loses control and kills you. Then, she commits suicide to avoid punishment. I lose my parents, but I inherit all of their assets. Then, I'll defeat Jiang Shanka with my godfather and become the final winner. What do you think of this design?" As he spoke, he suddenly stabbed at Gong Coco. At the last moment, Gong Coco's body suddenly exploded with a burst of air. Wen Pingqiu was pushed away and slammed into the bookshelf. Gong Coco's mind was slightly clearer. She hurriedly stumbled out. Fortunately, when she came, she knocked out the people outside, so she was unimpeded. However, her head was getting dizzier and her footsteps were getting heavier. Especially her body. It was very painful. Gong Coco had never been in such pain in her life. With every step she took, the pain increased. She was very afraid of pain, and her eyes couldn't help but tear up. If it was any other time, she definitely wouldn't walk anymore. It would only worsen the decline of her body. But this time she didn't know why, but she didn't stop. She ran in one direction with all her might. Even if every step was like stepping on the edge of a knife, she wanted to go back. She must tell Jiang Shanka that there were bad people around him who were colluding with Wen Pingqiu. She must tell him. However, when she passed by the Haitian Canal, a group of people stopped her. When the three delinquents saw Gong Coco's exquisite appearance but delirious state, they couldn't help but have lustful thoughts. Plus, this was the suburbs, so they became even more daring. On the bridge, one person blocked Gong Coco's path, while the other two blocked her retreat. They approached her with lewd smiles. "What a beautiful girl. It's so late. Where are you going?" Gong Coco had no ability to resist at this time. The drug that Wen Pingqiu gave her was enough to poison all the horses in the horse farm. Her hand attacked the other party, but in fact, it was just soft. The other party caught her hand and caressed her hand wantonly. "Damn, your skin is so smooth and tender." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.